Hello and welcome back to the second SportsRunDown Betalong of the season. How are you getting on tonight, Gary?
Yeah, good, LB. Good. How are you?
I'm good. Before we get too carried away with the chats, I'm just going to jump straight into one of the bets because we're a little bit late to air and one of our Friday night bets is actually already in play. So anyone familiar with SportsRundown.com, we have the Friday night bet along and we have the all action ACCA, which is basically kind of a goals or high octane bet for the night. The first one up is Brescia Crotone, so make sure to head over and check out that article if you get a chance. But basically, we've gone with Brescia to win and both teams to score in that match. Brescia really are the pace setters in the Serie B, and they host Crotone tonight. I think Crotone are a little bit sort of they're flattering to deceive, or the reverse of that. They're the 17th, I think, in the table. They don't look really good at the minute, but they have actually been playing okay. They haven't been picking up the points. They're scoring plenty, so I think they'll score probably one tonight and lose hopefully 2 or 3-1, and we get the both teams to score part of that and the win. So that's 23-10, and it's the first match. We'll look at a few more bets in that article that we'll be doing in our treble tonight, but they don't kick off for quite a few minutes. So we'll just want to get that one out of the way, just so that there's no accusations of after time or anything afterwards. So
we never accuse you of that, LB.
No. Well, not the way my tips have been going this week anyway. There's nothing to after time about. So how are you getting on tonight, Gary? The bets have been going pretty well for you this week, actually. You were very unlucky with the midweek EFL action.
Yeah, we'll probably get on to the EFL bet later on, but yeah, it was unlucky. I followed you in now tonight. I couldn't get the over 2.5 and both teams to score element with my bookmaker, but I followed you in on the rest, so my odds have decreased. I think you put up when I was around maybe 40-1 or something like that. Mine are around, I think it's around 20-1, so I was gone with over 2.5 in that game. But it's nice that yourself and Laurie are kind of on the same page, or Enzo are on the same page with the Serie A. So he was predicting kind of a high scoring game and a Sassuolo win as well. So I think that's a good endorsement for the Serie A bet anyway.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's a good endorsement that he likes my pick and not a bad omen for him that I like his pick.
Yeah.
But we'll find out soon enough. So just to run through the rest of the ACCA that we have on tonight, the Friday night treble, we have there's a Belgian game as well. Cercle Brugge are hosting Eupen tonight in probably not a huge game for most neutrals, but it should actually be quite an interesting one. Cercle are probably the weirdest team in the Belgian FTA. They have some really great games, then generally they're pretty toxic. And then one thing that stood out to me is that I kind of had a feeling, so I actually went through their stats for the last couple of seasons, and they have a big tendency that when they have a really good game, they're crap afterwards. So I'm not sure if anyone who read the article or saw it themselves or watched the game even, but they were losing 2-0 to Zulte Waregem last week after like an hour into the match, 65 minutes, and between 65 and 95 minutes they scored 4 goals and won 4-2. To put that into context, they'd only scored 5 goals in the whole season up until then. So they scored 5 goals in 6 matches and then 4 goals in half an hour. And it was unbelievably impressive. It was a curler into the top corner, a really nice, it was a defensive mix-up for one, a penalty, and then another really nice finish. So they looked really good, and they have a tendency to mess up after that. So I kind of like Eupen here. They're 17-10. They also have a really good record against Cercle Brugge. So I think they've beaten them 4 of the last 5 times they've played, including 3 in a row in Bruges. So I just think the omens are there. On top of that, Eupen were really good in the first sort of 6 matches of the season. I think they were unbeaten for 5 or 6 games. They'd won all bar 2 of those. And then they just lost the last 2. They looked really sloppy either side of the international break. So I think it'll be an away win tonight at 17-10. I also think over 2.5 goals is a really good bet there. They're both kind of scoring plenty and pretty sloppy at the back. And even when Eupen do win, they do tend to concede. And one other angle for tonight, I wasn't going to mention it this early, but now that I'm on a roll, I'm just going to say it, is that Eupen have scored 13 goals in the league so far. 10 have been in the second half. And Cercle have scored 9 goals in the league and 8 have been in the second half. So I think over 1.5 second half goals at even money is a good shout in that game.
Yeah, and LB, just to say, you've obviously said they're Eupen 17-10. They've actually drifted. I don't know whether they've drifted in all the sports books, but when I was looking to get the bet on, they were out to 5-2 with Betfair. So I think that's a fairly juicy price. As you said, given the record against Bruges and their opening season form, I wouldn't follow the Belgian league as close as you would now, but 5-2 for a team with that record against Bruges, even though they are away from home, I think is decent value.
Yeah, I really like it. Circle, if it was any other team, you could look at it and think, oh, Eupen they've had a couple of two bad results only, and maybe it's, they're going on a bad run. But if anyone in Belgium you want to play to kind of get yourself back on track, it's probably Circle. So yeah, I like it. I'm going to actually might back them again at 5-2 there. That's a really good price. So yeah, just give me 1 second, Gary.
And just so, have you run through the whole bet there, LB, or do you want me to continue?
Yeah, you should just give a run through Enzo's Sassuolo pick as well. That's the last one in the treble tonight.
Okay, so yeah, so Sassuolo to win at 19-20. So Sassuolo, they're up against Torino, but Torino have been pretty toxic. I know they nearly got relegated last season, and now they've kind of started the season off in that fashion again. They beat the bottom team Salernitana last week 4-0, but apart from that, they've been fairly shocking. So yeah, Sassuolo to win tonight seems like a good bet, or even money to win. I think you've tipped up Sassuolo win at over 2.5 LB, haven't you? So you've added a bit more juice in there. So it's the same kind of principle. Sassuolo will dominate in Serie A. Goals can happen at any time. So the over 2.5 adding that bit of juice in. But I kind of went for the aggressive bet with your Sassuolo on over 2.5, but I also did conservative, just keep Sassuolo in there. So hopefully both can come up, but at least I have that kind of insurance pick if it ends 2-0 to Sassuolo. So
yeah, it was something that we talked about certainly offline. I think we might have talked about it in a couple of the articles. And Enzo is a kind of his opinion is that Sassuolo have been a bit unlucky in front of goal recently. So I would tend to agree with him. He's obviously the Serie A expert, so I think maybe if they get a bit of luck tonight and maybe they get their tails up, they might score a couple. So I'm kind of hoping that's where the goals will come from.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Anyway, hopefully, last week, all the games we were monitoring, I think if we had been in the League of Ireland, it probably would have been one of the most exciting Friday nights that we've had, because there was goals going in left, right, and centre. But the games we chose ended up being I think they started off pretty fast and furious, but it got into lulls pretty quickly. So I said, hopefully tonight can be a bit of a goal fest and land a couple of those bets.
Yeah, absolutely. So Slats, you've joined us there now as well. Welcome to the show. How are you getting on?
Good, thanks. I could see myself floating around there on screen a few minutes ago. Yeah. I wasn't sure if we should just start yapping away or just smiling. Yeah. Stay still.
It's like just kind of when you're not sure if you're on air or not. It reminds me of those photos. And did you have like photograph day in school and every student got their photo taken in primary school, and you're just sitting there like a plank waiting. You don't know if you're actually being the one photographed or not.
Oh really? No, I don't remember that at all. That sounds real American or something.
Yeah,
maybe it was just in our school, but like you'd all go into a room and they just like take photos, but you didn't know if you were the one being taken at that time. You're just sitting there trying to laugh.
For your yearbook, was it?
Yeah. I don't know what it was for, really. I think your parents could get a copy of them or something.
Oh, that kind of
actually dodgy anyway.
Was that? I thought that was just with like communion and confirmation or something. I don't know.
No, I think we did it every year in my school. I'm not sure. No, didn't sound so weird until I said it out loud. Now I'm not sure about it.
Moving swiftly on.
Yeah. So Slats, apology. You were texting me offline. You'd mentioned that there'd be goals in the Dutch division tonight, and we didn't include them in the all action act. This is a classic case of after time because the game kicked off earlier, but your prediction was pretty solid there. So
yeah, well, it was. I looked through the list of games. There's like 8 or 9 games on in that league, and I mean, generally it is good for goals, and it's kind of heading that way already. But 3 of them are still 0-0 going into halftime, and all of the ones I looked at, it's a little early in the season, and I didn't feel that strongly about any others. But the Almere City versus Ajax game looked like a banker for goals. All right, it was 8-11 for both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. 8-11 is a bit conservative, but I said I'd stick with that for my first night back and try start off with a winner. And it's 1-1 in that game going into half time. So any second half goal, and that's him. So
I feel like there's always more second half goals in the Netherlands as well.
Always, so. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it'd be shocking if that stayed 1-1 for the whole second half. So hopefully get one there. There's been plenty. There's been plenty of the games that have had goals. There's one other one, Volendam. That game's 1-1 and a few 1-0s. But yeah, the Dutch 2 always has more goals in the second half than first half. Certainly feels that way. I haven't actually any solid stats to back that up, but it definitely feels like that's the case.
Speaking of the Dutch too, I actually forgot to mention this in the rush in the Brescia game. But there's a guy there, I was going to don't want to mispronounce his name, Mulatieri, it looks like. He's an Inter player on loan. He's only 20, and he was in the Dutch second division last season, I think with I can't actually remember what team he was with, but he scored 18 goals in the league anyway, and he's back in the Serie B now. He was there before he went to the Netherlands.
It wasn't. Would you recognise it if you heard it? It wasn't Cambor, was it?
No.
They dominated last season and scored a ton of goals.
And he scored 3 goals already in two games for Crotone. Yeah, so he's 12-5 tonight, and usually you don't even see individual goal scorer markets in the Serie B, but it's priced up for this game, and he's 12-5. So I actually got a small bet on him as well, just a single. I think if Crotone are going to score, there's a very good chance it'll be him. He looked really, really sharp, and I would imagine he'll be back at Inter certainly next season, maybe even at the end of this season. So,
did you say 11-5 anytime goal scorer?
12-5.
12-5 anytime goal scorer.
Yeah,
that seems really good considering the start he's had.
Do you know what I think it is? I think he officially went in as a midfielder. Right. He absolutely plays as a forward. Yeah. So I think that maybe the expectation was that he wasn't going to do much. I don't really know why he was so high. Maybe as well as the element that he's playing for Crotone in there, obviously the outsiders.
Yeah, I'd say there's a bit of that creeping in as well, considering they're outsiders. Isn't it?
Yeah,
but there's not many clean sheets in Serie B usually, so you know what I mean. Even the outsiders do tend to nick one. Like,
yeah, I don't know. There was a couple when we tipped them up earlier in the season. It was 30 shots and no goals. I still wake up in a cold sweat about that game sometimes, but. Yeah. So tonight, with tonight's action, are you lads watching any particular match? Are you tracking any game?
So I'm going to have the Leeds Newcastle game on, or Newcastle Leeds might be, but I actually picked out a bet on that. We didn't actually publish it on the website, but I think that Daniel James 2 shots on target is very big there. So obviously he's making his full debut for Leeds after signing for Man United, and he's 7-1 to have 2 shots on target. So he's normally fond of a shot. He's a little bit greedy. I thought it was a big price. So I've just had a single on that, and I threw in a bet builder as well with it, like the corners and stuff. But I'd be happy enough if he gets his 2 shots on target today.
Yeah, I actually started a new betting strategy today. I don't know if you want to hear it now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'll say
I was hoping for a new bit of betting strategy.
Yeah, it went extremely well so far.
Now he tells us. Yeah.
This is absolutely
well.
So I'm retiring from the stream and I'm actually moving to the Cayman. So thanks, guys.
I mean, it's about £100, but I'm still happy. So I just started with 2 tenors or 20 quid in the bank, just to test this one out. And do you remember we were talking about it'll be back in second half goals, or if you're just backing a goal and you're getting odds of kind of like 1-3, 1-2 or 1-3, sorry, 1-4 or 1-3. Generally, you're getting at half time, or similarly at the start of the first half if you back a first half goal. And then we were kind of keeping an eye on the amount of games that we backed that in, and then how many of those went on to have over 1.5 goals. So you could have kind of gone a bit riskier. So what I said I'd do is with 1 tenor, just back the safe option, just back a kind of a 1-4 shot or a 1-3 shot over 3 bets. This was the idea. So that one, all you're trying to do is turn that tenor back into the 20. So it's your kind of backup plan to retain your original bank. And then with the other tenor, you do the over 1.5 bet, and you're getting about 6-5 for that each time. So, you're kind of rolling that up across 3 bets, and you're getting about 10-1 on that. So I did it today.
Nice.
I picked out some Polish game that had a ton of attacks, shots, corners. All the stats were looking good at half time, but it was still 0-0. It was 1.32 for a goal and 2.32 for 2 goals. So I did that, a tenner on each, tenner on 1 goal to win 3 quid profit, a tenner on 2 goals to win 13 quid profit. And I got a bit lucky there. It was like the 83rd and 87th minute or something. The 2 goals came in. So I rolled that onto, my my fondness of backing women's football.
I was just about to say that. I can't believe you didn't back the women's qualifiers.
Game 2 was the ladies. Estonia were playing Slovenia. Now, obviously, no, absolutely nothing about this game, anything behind it. But Slovenia were 1-18 to win the match. It was about 20 minutes in, and they had a ton of chances already. So, I kind of fancied, like, it looked like an absolute guarantee that they were going to score in the first half. So I did that. I backed 1 first half goal was 1.29, and 2 first half goals was 2.28 actually. So same thing. I put 13 quid on for 1 goal, and that returned. It ended up 2-0 at half time. It actually came in after about another 10 minutes. So I got up to 16 quid on the backup tenner, the banker tenner, and got up to about 50 on about 52 on the over 1.5, the kind of more riskier bet of it. And then the third game was that Almere Ajax game. I did the same thing. I put 17 on over 0.5 first half goals and about 50 on over 1.5 first half goals. So 1.28 for 1 and 2.22 for 2. And that came in again pretty easily, like it was in after 20 minutes. So I had the backup. Once 1 goal went in there, I had the original tenner up to 21 quid. So my original 20, my bank was safe. And then the second goal won me 63. So the 20 quid is up to 135 after those 3 games. But even if the even shots there, the 6-5s for over 1.5 had let me down, I was still looking good for getting my money back, keeping my 20s. So
it's decent strategy, and obviously that insurance element is good, but they can be killers when there's loads of shots and you just don't get the goal. But it seems like the logical thing to do is just that. It's kind of like a double chance kind of bet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what I was kind of thinking is that if you're getting basically 10-1 for the over 1.5 treble, you only need to win that, for every time that you get the treble of over 0.5, you're good. But outside of that, you still only need to win it once every 10 times to break even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think over time, you're obviously gonna get hard done by. A lot of times there'll only be 1 goal in these games, and occasionally there won't be any goals in them. So, you're going to lose a few, but it just feels like a strategy that you would win more than you would lose. So time will tell. Yeah. I'm going to have a look.
Especially now when there's a lot more goals around now with VAR and things like that. So
do you think so? I actually
think so, yeah.
What I have felt is that I'm ending up a lot more disappointed. A goal goes in, it says 1-0 on Betfair, Bet365, and then it's like VAR reviewing goal, and the odds go back suspended, and then it's like.
I'm with you on that, Slats, 100%. We can make it a stat corner for next week that someone's responsibility to go in and look it up and see what the actual stats say. But for me, it's definitely. Now I do admit that I might be biased because I was reading something, and I think Arsenal have the worst record in both goals scored that have been cancelled and goals against that have been given from a VAR. So
and just in the Premier League in general. But
yes, yeah. So just when I see VAR come up, it's just like, right, well, this is either a goal against or a goal scored cancelled. So, but I do think I would imagine it's reduced more goals than it's given. But
no, I think the penalties outweigh that.
Do you think so? The penalties outweigh the say offsides or
I think so. But yeah.
The thing about the penalties is though most of them, there's been diving has been rife in the sport for the last couple of years, like a good few years. So I think the only penalties that wouldn't have been given that are being given now are handballs, and it's probably like 4 or 5, a season of those. I don't think there's that many that wouldn't have been given. I think it's still, it's a lot of time and they look at them, but I think the penalties are being given anyway. So We can check it and have an official
Yeah,
answer
we need
for
to
you
do
next
some
week.
research on it, but I feel like there's more goals anyway. So
How would you measure this properly? You would need to be counting. You'd need to know what the decision was going to be before it went to VAR, right? And then you could count the number of decisions where the ref had said no penalty.
Sounds like you volunteering for that for next week's lads. So
I just
suppose
wondered.
in general, just look at year-on-year goals, like you know,
But year-on-year goals wouldn't be exclusively based on VAR. It could just be, you know, fans back in the stadium could have or last season no fans in the stadium. There could be other factors that would, you know, impact that.
I'll trust whatever you do anyway. Once it proves me right.
We have faith in you, slats. So, all right. So before we move into some more of the live action that's on tonight, what did you make of the Champions League and Europa League return this week, Ari? I know you were pretty happy with at least one of the results.
Yeah, like so. The Europa League last night, I watched two of the games. Obviously, West Ham were fairly impressive away in Zagreb. So I know, like in your article earlier on the week, LB, and Joe, I thought you were 100% right in terms of but the logic was right in terms of, like, you know, Zagreb is a tough place to go. You know, even the pitch was awful; it was bobbling all over the place, and you think that would bring the team with less quality and give them an advantage. So I thought, like, it was an exceptional performance.
I'm sure they do that with the pitch on purpose. I'm sure
probably,
yeah.
But the amount of times that, like, the players are about to strike the ball and it just bobbled at the last second and they were skying and stuff. But West Ham never let Zagreb get into the game at all. I think they took the game with a scruff of the neck. First half was very impressive. Start of the second half, they weren't that great, but then, especially when they got the goal, they just kicked on. The second goal, they just kicked on, and it never really looked in doubt. I was expecting a fairly nervy evening, but I said I was fairly impressed. And fair play to David Moyes with his team selection. You know, a lot of people had it down to kind of be wholesale changes, which I don't really get in Europe. Like, if you're a bottom kind of, not bottom of the table contender, but if you're not in that kind of top four Champions League title contenders, and you're not gonna, realistically, you're not gonna win the Premiership. It's unlikely you're going to win the FA Cup. You might win the League Cup. When you get into Europe, you have to kind of just go all out to win it. So I was happy that kind of West Ham played that team. So Declan Rice's goal was unreal. I was happy with that. And then the Leicester game, I thought that was really, really good. So the two favourites, so Leicester and Napoli, are the anti-post favourites for the game, for the Europa League. And it was just end to end. You know, Leicester got on top. We're 2-0 up. Napoli came back, got it to 2-1, and then probably could have snuck it in extra time. So it was just really good. The atmosphere, the King Power was really, really good. I just love the rapport that the Italian teams have with their fans. So I don't know whether you saw when they scored the second goal and they went over to the fans. There's only probably about 100 Napoli fans there, but, you know, they really celebrated, and I like that. So, yeah, the two games that I watched last night, the full 90 minutes, I really enjoyed. I said the result was the main thing from West Ham perspective, but they were good in the performance. And then I just thought the Napoli-Leicester game was a thrilling game of football. Liverpool did well in the Champions League as well. When you throw away a 2-goal lead, you can, 1-goal lead, go 2-1 down, just have to show hard to come back, win 3-2. So I thought they did well there as well. So
there's a couple of things you said I want to touch on there. I mean, first of all, the Liverpool match, I still can't decide. I was actually talking to Enzo offline about this, but I can't decide if Milan are really good or just really lucky so far. I know they play Juve at the weekend, and Juve aren't great. And I think even if they win that, if they lose that, then they're just been lucky so far. And if they beat them, it still doesn't really tell us. And then they play Atletico, I think, in the next round of the Champions League, and we'll know after that. Because, I mean, they scored 2 against Liverpool. They kind of put them under a good bit of pressure, but then at the same time, Liverpool had about 20 shots on target in that match and really could have won by more. So it's the jury's still out. But I think if they do well against Juve and Atletico in the next 2 weeks, I can see them like even, first or second in the Serie A and Champions League semi-finals, or else it'll be, 5th in the Serie A and out in around the 16. So I'm going to hold my judgment back for that one. But it was a very exciting match as well. And the thing about the Napoli fans was great. you don't really see it in the bigger leagues. I think of all the big leagues, it's only the Serie A where you see them have that relationship with the fans. Maybe PSG, we saw it too, but certainly a lot of the English and Spanish clubs don't seem to have it, So
what's that, LB? I didn't see that.
Just as the way that the players celebrated with the fans and how that the way they nearly answered to the fans is how I kind of feel about it. I've been away at English clubs, Europa League and Champions League matches, and all you get is like a token wave at the end of the game. They don't seem to really care. But Napoli were 2-0 down. They came back and they were the players went over and like really enthusiastically celebrating with their very small away contingent. So it was just really cool to see.
Yeah, that is good to see. Yeah.
Yeah, because like that's, obviously it's not all about what football's about, but it's the main thing. And especially when, John, because it did happen, in fairness, I saw videos online with West Ham as well, like after the match, like players went down to the West Ham fans, and there was a lot of shirt giveaways and things like that, which is good, John, especially in a COVID environment where like the West Ham fans got a week's notice that they could travel, and you get 2,000 of them over in Croatia with all of the different hoops you have to jump through from a COVID perspective. At that stage, the flights, like I looked up flights when the draw was announced, and you could have got them for 75 quid return from Stansted. And then the day we were told you're allowed go, I looked them up and it was 400 quid one way. So, if people left them to the last minute, they're probably spending the guts of 600-700 to get there and back, plus their tickets, plus food, accommodation, few drinks, all that kind of stuff. You wouldn't see 1,500 quid go. So when you're going that journey, you want to have a bit of.
It's funny you said about the flights. I've seen it way back when Arsenal used to be in the Champions League, and the draw would come out, and you didn't know if they played Tuesday or Wednesday, and the flights would be like £75 from Gatwick or somewhere like that. And then as soon as they make the decision which day the game was on, it would just be freaking fly up in price. So it was an absolute nightmare. You mentioned West Ham earlier, and I actually never responded to it, but yeah. I was really impressed with him. I thought that the first European game in 40 years, it's not an easy place to go. I thought the occasion would get to them, but in reality, it happened the other way around, and they really kind of stepped up to the occasion. So I'm kind of happy with the way I predicted that match, but it was just completely wrong at the end. And West Ham were actually really impressive. You have to give so much credit to David Moyes now over the last sort of 18 months and how well he's picked his team, how well prepared they've been for nearly every single game they've played. Very, very impressive. And I think West Ham could go far in it this year. I really hope they do as well. So, good look, exciting times for the Hammers.
Yeah, and sorry, just moving slightly away from that, Brescia have just taken the lead in Serie B, so good start for the bet there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Moyes does deserve a lot of credit. Again, they've changed a few of the chants. We'll put Moyes in there. I think he deserves it. I think they're starting to slowly come around to his way of thinking. And yeah, like all the signs are positive. So fingers crossed. I'm going to be going to Genk, so fingers crossed they can play as well in Genk as they did.
When's that game, Gary?
I think it's the 25th of November, so not for a while yet. So,
okay, yeah.
They play. I think they might play they're definitely home the next twice. It could even be like they play 3 home games back to back and then 2 away. But yeah,
I think it's just 2.
Is it 2? Is it?
Yeah, I've been to that Genk stadium. I went there for a Liège match years ago. It's really weird. It's right at the outskirts of the town. I mean, Genk is not that big a place, so it's not like you could say that the West Ham stadium's kind of at the edge of London. Like this is like the town, the stadium, and then there's just like fields and trees behind it. It's really kind of strange to go to it. But yeah, it should be a great night.
Oh, sorry. Eupen have just gone 1-0 up as well. That's some call. If it holds off, obviously it's still early, 20 minutes in, but
yeah, I'm sitting there smiling, and they're going to lose 2-1 now. Don't worry about it. But you were off air, Slats. I don't know if you heard us, but it's definitely an angle that we should look at in the future. Like I think I actually wrote it down. I think in the last 2 seasons, Circle have scored 3 goals on 6 or more 6 occasions. 3 or more goals, they've scored 6 or more occasions, and they won 1 the following week, and then they've drawn 1 and lost 4 the following games. And generally, when they lose, they were getting hammered as well. So like 2-0, 3-0 in those matches. So they're really bad. Like they just don't have the depth of talent to two big performances
So
together.
after a game where they perform well, they generally lose the following week, is it?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see if they can. Hopefully, Eupen can hang on here. I think
they would have been
Eupen
favourites
definitely
here,
have
right?
the quality. Yeah, 7-4 when I looked at it against 17-10. No,
Yeah.
7 was that right? Whatever they weren't. They were favourites slightly, but
yeah.
I mean, Eupen shouldn't have been. I thought Eupen were kind of like an 11-10 sort of team. They did have two bad games, but I mean, most teams can recover from that.
I mean, they're both down toward the bottom of the table, right? But it's early days yet, like.
Yeah. That's good. I'm watching the Sassuolo Torino game here, and Torino are pretty, they're holding their own. So the both teams to score aspect of that, it would be nice to see a Torino goal, maybe 1-1 rather than go 1-0 Torino, but they're certainly not being played off the park at all by Sassuolo yet.
Yeah, I think I just like a goal in that because as I said, I had to go without the both teams to score there. So I'd be just hoping for any goal in the first half. You don't want to be waiting for 3 in the second half, like.
Yeah. So now that those games are all in, we might run through a couple of the bets we have up for the weekend. So maybe Gary, you want to just kind of run through the rest of the Serie A action because you touched on Enzo's first game in the Serie A.
Yeah. So we touched on the first tip was Sassuolo. So his second is a draw in the Napoli game. So obviously we mentioned there Napoli were away to Leicester. They played was it Juventus last weekend. It was a tough game. So after that kind of tough schedule or tough week, Enzo's kind of predicting a bit of a drab affair that they'll kind of park the bus and it might end up being a draw. So it's a big call. It's always a big call when you predict a draw in a game, but I like that, and we've discussed them in the past, and we actually did a stats corner one day on it around English teams' performances in the league after playing in Europe that midweek, and you could see kind of a fall off in the results. So even though Napoli have had a good start to the season, the fact that they played Thursday night, they might have a kind of a downward trajectory in their performance, and he's predicting a draw there. Then in Salernitana, I'm going to butcher the name of that, versus Atalanta. So obviously, like Salernitana are kind of the whipping boys, but Atalanta, I mean, I find them, and I know we discussed it on this show before as well, that they're kind of the Grim Reaper of bets. Anytime I put Atalanta in a bet, it could be corners, goals, to win, to be beaten. It just is the opposite result of what I do. But Enzo seems to have a fairly good track record with them. So he's tipping up winning over 2.5 goals, which again, against a team like Salernitana, should be a kind of gimme. And it's actually priced up at 4-5, which I thought was quite juicy for a bet like that, considering, there's bound to be goals and you'd expect most of them to come from Atalanta. And then his last bet of that accumulator, I think if Tammy Abraham gets any anonymous Valentine's cards next year, you'll probably know who they're from. I thought you were bad with your Giroud love affair, and I was bad with my Wes Hoolahan love affair, but I've never seen someone to be tipping up a player as often as Tammy Abraham has been tipped up by Enzo. But in fairness to him, he's managed to kind of win the bets that he's tipping up there. So he's going with Abraham anytime again. So you give a good stat in there around Abraham not being able to score at home, and he's hit the bar on a number of occasions, but his goals have kind of come away from home. So being back away from home, kind of pressure off against Verona, him anytime at 11-10 again seems a good bet. So the 4 of those, so it's the Atalanta win over 2.5 goals at 4-5. So Sassuolo tonight at 19-20. Abraham anytime at 11-10, and then the draw on Udinese Napoli at 5-2. He hasn't put them in an ACCA, but individually they all look very, very reasonable, and I'd probably stick them in an ACCA myself.
I definitely will put them in the ACCA. It's a good. The 3 of them are well priced, actually. Yes, I'm looking forward to putting that on. The Abraham one, it is funny. I didn't really rate him, to be quite honest, very much. Hadn't really seen a lot of him play now, if I'm going to be fully honest about it. But he's impressed me very much this season. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to change my tune on him a bit. Not quite as big a fan as Enzo is, but
I did rate him now in the Premiership. I was actually fairly disappointed because there was rumours that he was going to go to West Ham. I think he could be mates with Declan Rice from their Chelsea underage days. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was some sort of link there between Abraham and West Ham. So at the start of the summer, there was those rumours. His wages were kind of a sticking point. I think he wanted like $100,000 a year, and then when Roma came in, what did they pay? They paid 40 million.
I'd say he wanted a lot more than $100,000 a year.
Or $100,000 a week. Sorry, $100,000 a week. Yeah, and it was a 40 million they paid for him. Might have been 40 million euro. It was definitely a decent amount they paid for him, but that would have been way out of West Ham's budget anyway. So I like him.
Sassuolo just cleared the ball. I don't know how this was in the goal. It looked like it was already in the net, and we just see who it was, and he cleared it off the line. This could easily get a VAR review here. Torino completely cut them up, a ball straight down the middle. He chipped the keeper. The ball bounced. Oh no, it was about actually half a foot before going over the line. But looked like an absolute nailed on Torino goal. Would have been perfect for the bet there. So it's a wake-up call.
Betting aside, I always root for the defender in those ones. If there's a close call where the defender's made a great effort to clear it off the line, and if it goes to VAR or whatever, I'm always hoping that the defender...
This game is ridiculous. Sassuolo went straight down the other end and nearly scored, and now Torino come straight back up this end and hit the post. And oh my God, he missed it. He cleared it off the line again. Oh my God. Torino got the ball cleared off the line, right? Sassuolo picked it up, went straight down the other end, had a good shot. It was kind of comfortably saved in the end. Keeper threw it out, went straight back down the other end. Curler from outside the box hit the post, and I missed who it was, number 17 for Torino. His first touch was just so clumsy. I'd say he thought it was going into the goal, and he just stuck a leg at it and then just messed it up. But then he got the ball back, squared it, nearly went in, and another defender cleared it out for a corner. So this game could be 2-1 just on the last three passages of play alone. And now it is a Torino corner. God.
There's nearly half an hour gone, but it's 11-10 for a first half goal. It's kind of tempting.
I'll be backing it. Yeah, that looked really tempting.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we could start one of our 10 euro to 10 grand specials.
You know what? I was looking through screenshots on my phone the other day. I was trying to find something, I can't remember what it was, and I found a tweet that I'd screenshotted from our bet roulette. I don't know how long ago it was. Must be a year ago at this stage. And it actually kind of made me smile. I kind of like to bring that back. I think, obviously, I don't know who it was, but somebody kept betting on women, and we kept losing our money.
And one of those times hands down.
I'd like to bring that back because it was such a stress, but kind of an enjoyable one when you hope that you weren't the one to mess it up. So I'm not sure if you want to...
People that are watching in, so for anybody who wouldn't have seen it previously, essentially the bet roulette was we'd start with a pot, so let's say 20 quid, and then it would basically go between the three of us. So I'd start off, I'd put the bet on, and it would win, obviously, and then it would go to Liam, and his bet would win. And then I'd go to Slats, and he'd put the pot on women's football, and it would lose, and then we'd start again. So the idea is that you're kind of just going around, and each time it's your turn, you can really bet on whatever you want. We were sticking to, I think it was 1 to 2 shots we were looking for, was it? And Slats still couldn't find one of those in the women's football. So
the funny thing is, he watches so much women's football that you think he'd be able to pick bet or two, but.
I can't believe this slander. LB, you definitely lost one of them for us. I'm not sure about you, Gary.
Got one up, lads. Sorry.
Shit, I didn't. I was trying to get on it, and
oh yeah, shit. We should have.
Oh, I was in, and it went suspended as I was trying to get the bet on. Raging.
Slightly behind here on my perfectly.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but Gary.
Sorry, I panicked.
But that's really ideal the way the bets are lined up because we do need a Sassuolo win, at least for Enzo's one. But the way this game is going, I wouldn't be surprised if Torino did pull one back. So if the two of you are interested, I think we should start another bet roulette and kick it off. Obviously, we can't get the first half goal in this one, but
Grant, but like we started now anyway. Sure, it doesn't have to be a first half goal, but we'll start now. Who wants to take over the mantle first?
I guess
if it's still 1-0 at half time in the Belgian game, if there's not been more goals, I will take over 1.5 second half goals at evens. I think that's a great bet.
Sorry, but Sassuolo goal has been disallowed for offside, I think. That's
I never know.
Is
that like, have you missed your chance and you should avoid it, or should you jump on it? I think I'm going to jump on it anyway.
I was just going to say I think you'd avoid, but yeah.
I mean, I completely agree with you, but
you're degenerate and you're just going to go ahead anyway.
Well, I'm just going to. I mean, it's gone up to above 6-4. And it seems like it's been non-stop action there. I'm just going to throw a tenner on it and see if I can roll that tenner up if there is a goal here. Yeah,
I just seen the replay and he was definitely offside.
It's 13-8 now for a goal there. What do you think, LB? I was saying to Gary, do you count it as a, there's a bit of bad luck there to go allowed? Do you stay away from it, or do you kind of go, right, I have a second chance to get on this now? I missed it the first time.
Give me. I'm a couple of minutes behind now, but I'd like to see how the teams react to it. Like, this was end to end for the 5 minutes before the goal. If it stays end to end, yeah, I'd take it, but it might have knocked the wind out of their sails as well. So give me a second. While we are waiting for me to make my mind up on that, another kind of article we have up on the site. So again, anyone who's not familiar with SportsRunDown.com to head over there and check. We've got a couple of different league experts. We've been talking about Enzo in the Serie A, and we also have Dermot, who's on an unbelievable run with his Ligue 1 betting, so his French Ligue 1. And he's another article up this week. So I like the name Party in the Park. Obviously, the PSG Stadium. So he's won 2 in a row. He's won his weekend ACCAs. So I think what were the prices, Gary? 14-1 and...
No, 17-2 and 15-2.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, yours was 14-1.
Like that's kind of back-to-back game week. So obviously, Joe, there was an international break in the middle of it. So it's 2 wins over a period of 3 weeks, but back-to-back game weeks. And then even earlier on in the season, like Dermo was so unlucky with his original, kind of the first few weeks, he was missing out here and there by a goal. It was like the Nice Marseille game, he had Nice tipped up there 1-0 up. The match gets abandoned, and it's been voided, so you don't even get paid out with the bookies. So there's been a lot of close calls there. If you put £1 on every bet that Dermot has recommended this season, with all his wins and losses, you'd be up £15. So around 15, I think it's 15.50 at this stage. But that's a very good return. What are we, kind of 6 weeks into the season? So I'm definitely jumping on his bet this weekend.
Oh yeah, 100%. I know you mentioned his P&L there, and I know it's something that we talked about ourselves before about the tipsters and all that sort of thing. But we don't want to make it a big deal. But like, if you look at a lot of the kind of professional tipsters out there, like, the P&Ls are quite poor, quite shoddy. So I mean, to be up 15 points after whatever it is, 5 or 6 game weeks is very impressive. So yeah, kudos to Dermot for that.
And there's a lot of straight up line out there as well, and manipulating odds and talking about the wins and avoiding any chat about the losses and all sorts. So
yeah, this was one actually I was kind of 50-50 about bringing it up, and it's not about football, but I was looking at some kind of preview show of a different sport, and I'll be as vague as I can here, but there was a preview show and people were talking about their wins and losses, and I started to read. I was tracking it because I watched it once or twice, and their return was never. I was like, they come back the following week, like, oh, we got 5 winners last week, we're on a great road, and I was like, that's definitely not what you suggested. So I started to write down all the bets they recommended, and they are so creative with how they record. Every bet has a different type of name. So this bet is like, we're 5 winners in a row for the whatever, but in reality they're down about 20 units.
Yeah, 5 wins.
So yeah, there's a lot of sneakiness out there.
I've seen that as well,
Yeah.
categorizing them all differently, and one set of bets does well, but it's only a fraction of the overall tally of bets.
Yeah, just two updates. Cercle Bruges have pulled one back. Now, I'm still pretty confident about that, but I'm going to park the over 1.5 second half goals. Just more first half goals. I think the less likely there are to be second half goals. So I'm going to leave that one out. But we did tip over 2.5 in the game, and it's 1-1 after 36 minutes. So pretty happy with that. And the other update was, this Sassuolo game is after getting a little bit cagey. A few scrappy tackles, a yellow card, some pretty wild shots that there was good passes on. So I would be inclined to, probably going to eat my words now in about 30 seconds, but I'd be inclined to leave this go for the first half goal.
Oh, I've already got on it.
Yeah. Oh, have you? Oh.
Yeah, I regretted it.
Not to worry.
Ajax went up 2-1 a few minutes ago. Ajax reserves in the Dutch 2, so that, it was only an 8-11 shot, but it walked in. Pretty good odds for how comfortable it was, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we're doing around the leagues, Leeds are 1-0 up against Newcastle as well. Rafinha, after about 15 minutes, they've really dominated this game. I'm watching it here, so unfortunately Daniel James hasn't got any shots on target yet, but there's still plenty of time. So I don't know whether you were online for that or not, but I'm saying Daniel James was 7-1 for 2 shots on target, which I thought was fairly big.
No, I wasn't. I missed that. Did you get on it?
Probably a lot bigger now, considering just 20 minutes into the game and he hasn't had any. But I still think it's a decent bet. So you probably get 16-1, I'd say.
I'm going to look it up. Did you get on it at 7-1?
Yeah, I'm on it at 7-1. Yeah, I have it in a single and in a bet builder at 7-1. So, we never actually, just back on Ligue 1 there, Liam, we never actually ran through Dermo selection. So we're going to run through them, or do we want to leave for people to go to the website? So again,
go over to the website and get the details on it. But he's got a 12-1 treble this week. You look at the markets, and it seems to be a surprise that it's so highly priced. So he's got PSG to win and both teams to score. Pretty solid justification for that. And then one other team to win, and there's one game both teams to score. So the three of those together is 12-1, and they all seem very, very generously priced. So
because considering Nice had a great start to the season, as I was saying, they were beating Marseille, and the game got void. And then the Lille game, Lille featured last week on our Betalong, and that game could have had 6 or 7 goals, finished 2-1. So for both teams to score, and that being just under even money, I think it's a decent bet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary, just remind me, what player were you talking about for 2 or more shots on target in this game?
Daniel James.
Okay, right. He's only gone up to 9-1, but it's actually suspended at the moment. I think it was just Bamford had a shot on target. I'm going to hop on him here anyway.
Yeah, Liam, when I was reading Dermo's write-up of Ligue 1, it brought back memories of our trip to Paris a couple of years ago. That because we went to the PSG Lyon game. That was an unreal game. So we might, I think the pictures are on our Instagram, but we might do a thing on Twitter this weekend where we post up some of the videos of the ultras. I think I've got Neymar scoring the penalty videoed, and a couple of other things. But that game had everything. As I had penalties, sending off. Was it the game end 4-2? I think I'm not exactly too sure the score, but there's players like Fekir playing for Lyon. It was just I think actually Fekir might be the player that was sent off. But
is my memory right that they were losing at half time and turned it around to win 4-2? Or
no, I think they went 1 behind and then got a player sent off.
They did concede first,
and then they came back and they were winning 3-1, and then Lyon scored, make it 3-2. It was kind of interesting.
Right.
4-2. So it was a class game, class atmosphere. The fans were unreal. So just brought back memories while I was reading through it.
Yeah, that was actually a great weekend with that and the Arc de Triomphe as well. It was really a great weekend of sporting entertainment. But you mentioned earlier with Napoli and the kind of the rapport with their fans. I mean, PSG for a super club or a rich club, whatever you want to call them. Very surprised at how well that they interacted with the fans and how enthusiastic the players were. Oh, yeah. Your vet has been very unlucky. Slats Torino have just had 2 really good chances saved.
Really,
yeah.
Yeah, I saw it come up shot on target, all right, but it's running out of time.
Doesn't really do it justice. But yeah, the Parc des Princes is just an unbelievable place to see a game. I have also just jumped on your Daniel James bet, Gary, by the way, just so there's no
pressure. No pressure.
The month rent on it there, so let's hopefully it comes in soon.
I think he's just got booked. He'll probably get sent off now.
So I'm off early to protect him.
Yeah.
This Torino game has just come back to life. So hopefully for you, Slats, it comes in just before half time. Was there left about 2 minutes left?
You were talking about this bet roulette that if there wasn't a goal, did you say in that match you'd get on a second half goal?
I was talking about the Belgian match though.
Oh, sorry.
Because
it didn't.
I mean, this game will definitely have a second half goal. If it's just so open, and both of them seem to be going for it. Neither of them. I mean, this early in the season, they're not really hanging on for a point. Both teams think they can beat the other team. So, oh God, you were so unlucky here. So a good Torino counter-attack. A good Sassuolo counter-attack. Torino have been putting huge pressure on. They could easily have 2 or 3 goals so far. So yeah, I really like a goal in the second half in this one.
So, Slats, was that tenner you put on our part of our bet roulette? Are you going to -10 straight away, or what's the
I don't know how that would have been part of bet roulette at those odds. I think you were saying 1-2 we did, but it was 1-20 we were doing, wasn't it? It was like, real banter.
That's even worse, man.
That sounds more like Gary now, 1-20 in fairness.
Yeah, we were like backing just a goal in a match at kickoff pretty much, weren't we? Like just over 0.5.
Well, I do remember a 0-0 being the one that really hurt us. So
yeah. Well, the one that killed me was that match that we kind of were suspicious if it ever even happened. Just 0 attacks, 0 shots on target.
I don't want to sound like I mean, if I mention where these matches play, it might sound like I don't know, we could get cancel culture on us. So I won't say, but there's certainly certain parts of the world where there's matches, and I fully do not believe that the match takes place, and it's just a racket between the people who provide the score updates online and the bookies, because you look it up and there's you look up any match. I look up there's probably 10, 15 amateur football teams in Waterford, and if you look up any of their games, you can see a lot of tweets about them and photos of the match, and even people updating live during the match. And then you look up these ones that are meant to be in the top or second division in a proper country, and there's just not a mention of it on Twitter. You look it up, there's
you saying
look up the team,
Ireland
and
is a proper country? Is that what you're saying? That's the Londoner coming out on you now.
Torino just hit the post again. So that's 3 off the line, and twice they've hit the post in this half, Slats.
Christ.
But anyway, you look up these other places, and these countries are they play an international tournament. Okay, that's the distinction between them and Ireland. They play in international tournaments, and they're second division, and there's not a single tweet about the entire game. I just think, right, something very suspicious here. Bet 365 has 45 shots on target, and it finishes 0-0. Right. This is the worst bad luck, Slats, you could possibly have for a first half goal. This match could be 3-1 to Torino.
Well, I think we can conclusively say if there's a goal disallowed in the first half, then leave it alone.
Yeah. It's probably gone half time on my.
Oh, you said it beforehand, yeah. I'm just saying conclusively to try and act as if I've learnt my lesson somehow.
Yeah. When this match is half time, guys, I'm going to have to take a 5-minute break because I have a obligation. It's called the 5 Scores that I entirely forgot about this week, and need to do a little bit of updating on that before I get any more accusations thrown my way.
Does that mean we're at the deadline of that? Because I haven't put in my.
Oh yeah, the deadline was about 2 hours ago.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, I actually noticed that when Rafinha scored, because I think he's in one of my picks from 2 weeks ago, and I didn't update them. So
he's in my pick actually,
anyway,
Rafinha as well. I got Rafinha for sure. And who else scored in that game, Gary? No. Oh, yeah, you have to excuse me for just a moment. I'll step away to do that.
Well, while you were going away, I'll run through my EFL ACCA for this week and tell the story of woe for last week. So our midweek.
Let's start with the woe, and then we'll move into the optimistic weekend ahead.
Yeah, so Stats, I don't know whether you were tracking the EFL midweek.
I wasn't. I was away last weekend, so I haven't caught up yet.
So there was a schedule in the championship, and it got off to a great start. So basically, it was split over Tuesday night and Wednesday night. And Reading were playing. So basically, Reading this season have been terrible in terms of getting results, but there's just been like goals galore in all of their games. So they were playing against who were they playing against? They were playing against Peterborough, who are second bottom of the table. And Peterborough are shocking away from home. Basically, they've done all right at home, but they're shocking away from home. So I fancied Reading to get kind of the first victory of the season because they were scoring so much. So I put them in Reading win and over 1.5 goals, and they ended up winning 3-1. So that was 2-1. Nice. So when you have a 2-1 shot as your first leg of the treble, you're like, right, we're in business.
Yeah, and comfortable as well with 3-1. Like it's
Yeah,
really
that was actually at the same time as Bournemouth versus QPR, and I think that Bournemouth went like 2-0 up in the first half, and it ended up I think they ended up winning 3-1 or something like that. So that was a comfortable victory as well. So the first Tuesday legs were in, just waiting on Wednesday. Nottingham Forest, who are bottom of the league, were playing against Middlesbrough. Again, both of these teams have just been conceding left, right, and centre. So I kind of had it chalked down as being, up before the match started. 20 minutes in, the away team take the lead. You're like, right, this is going to win. And then, like Forest, I think they had something like, they might have had 12 or 14 second half shots and couldn't get a goal. Now, of the shots, a lot of them were wide. I think they only might have had 1 or 2 on target, but they weren't that far wide. They were like, a yard or 2 wide. But they were just like basically bombarding the goal and couldn't score. And they ended up losing 2-0. So that was a 10-1 treble. Now I tipped it up as being singles as well. So overall, if you back the 4 of them, like the treble and the 3 singles, you would have still been up money. I think you would have been up about like £1.80 if you put £1 on all of them or something like that. But it was just frustrating because it was a 10-1 treble. It would have been nice to get it up. So
yeah, that's sick. It is. I mean, I guess it is a risk. When I look at the games of teams that I wouldn't be that familiar with, and you're just kind of going off stats and that, if the teams are kind of toward the bottom of the table, it can be risky because you're relying on a team who are in bad form, and you kind of need them to score. But what you're saying, like the stats totally back it up. But I've been let down
in the article that like it was going to go 2 ways. It was either going to be a cagey affair where like both teams just don't want to lose it, or it'd be kind of exciting because both teams have to win. Like a point wasn't really good enough for them, and it turned into the end-to-end game. It just wasn't like an end-to-end game with goals, like so frustrating. But
and like what you were saying, like that when the away team goes up early enough in the first half, you're absolutely expecting, the home team are going to come back here at some stage. They're going to get a goal at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to like tomorrow's one, tomorrow's ACCA. So I'm sticking with Nottingham Forest. Basically, they're rooted to the bottom of the league. They've been terrible. Sacked their manager. They've only had a point from 7 games. And they're away to Huddersfield, and Huddersfield have started the season fairly well. So they've played 7, won 4, drawn 1. So I think they're a fairly good bet. Sorry, 1 second. Hit the target. Oh, God. Sorry, Daniel James should have hit the target there. Took a dodgy touch. So, yeah, I'm going for Huddersfield to beat Nottingham Forest. So Huddersfield are at home. They're even money. I think that looks like a great bet. Then my second bet is...
That does look decent, yeah.
So Birmingham to beat Peterborough. So as I said, like Nottingham Forest are bottom. I think Peterborough are second bottom, and Birmingham have had a good start to the season. They've lost 2 games, but they've been against top teams. So Fulham are top of the league, and Bournemouth were my tip to win the league at the start of the season. I think they might be third or fourth. They're somewhere up the top anyway. They're like 2 points off Fulham. So the teams that Birmingham have lost to are pretty good, but I have them down as kind of being the best of the rest in the championship. So outside the top 4 or 5 teams, I think they'll kind of beat most of the other teams. They're away to Peterborough, but their last away game against Luton, they won something like 6-0 or maybe 6-1. So they're decent away from home. And they're I think they're 6-5 to win that game.
Peterborough, I can see, have lost 4 on the bounce, like so.
They've lost 4 on the bounce, yeah. So now, as I said, their home form has been better than their away form. I think they're unbeaten at home. I think they might be in 4 away games, are they? They're definitely, their home form is better than away, but it's still, I think they've conceded in their 7 games, they've conceded something like 18 goals. So like I think Birmingham will win it comfortably. So for those 2 bets, I'm fairly confident that they'll come in. I can't really see it going any other way than a Huddersfield win and a Birmingham win. And then it's a similar story in League 2. So Stevenage against Forest Green. Like Forest Green are top of the table. They lost 1 game, which was a defeat at the hands of Port Vale, where they conceded 2 goals really early in the game and just couldn't get back into it. But apart from that, they've been fairly dominant. Now, their goals have dried up recently. So they've been winning games like 1-0, whereas they were winning them like, I think one of the games they won was 6-3. So they've been scoring a lot. But I still think they have enough away from home against Stevenage. So they I think Stevenage, they're not a great team. And I just can't see why Forest Green is such a big price. Like Forest Green are 13-10. I think they should be about 4-6.
Seems mad. Like Stevenage, I can see their last 5 is last draw.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, that's what I think I mentioned that. So they're without a win in the last 5 games, 2 draws and 3 losses. Like it's I can't see why. Again, apart from the fact that they're unbeaten at home. So a lot of their defeats and stuff have come away. Their draws have been at home and their defeats have been away. Apart from that, I can't see why Forest Green would be 13-10. So I'd make them a 4-6 shot. So I think that's a good bet. And then the last one, slightly risky because so I'm going with Exeter versus Sutton United. So Sutton are newly promoted, and I've kind of picked on them a bit this year. And the 2 times I've put them in my bets, I've been right. So I put them in the start of the season. They got beaten by Forest Green and they won. And then I put them in actually to draw with Oldham and they ended up getting beaten. But I knew they kind of wouldn't win that game. So I've been picking on them a bit. But in the games, they've actually been fairly decent. And they've gone a bit of a decent run. So they've won back-to-back league games. They're actually 3 wins in a row if you include, I think it's the League Cup or the Football League Trophy. I forget which one it was, but they're definitely 3 wins on the spin. So it's a little bit risky taking them on here, but those wins have all come at home. They haven't won away yet this season. Exeter are usually decent at home. Exeter 6-5. So I've put that in. So it's a 22-1 accumulator. As I said, individually, the first 3, so the Huddersfield to beat Nottingham Forest, the Birmingham to beat Peterborough, and the Forest Green to beat Stevenage. I think that's a great treble. It might pay about 9-1. And then I've just put the Exeter in there for the kicker. That pays 22-1. So fairly hopeful that we can get a winner tomorrow.
Nice one, yeah. I think I'm going to play it safe and get on the 9-1 treble. Actually, I'll probably do small stakes on both, realistically. But yeah, I mean, those first 3, you're right. Like you're saying, they all look like they should be odds on. And yeah, like Forest Green 13-10, and the other 2 just around evens. Well,
Yeah, I've got the fear of 3+ as well. I think we discussed that last week, LB. But lads, I'll leave the question to you. I'm going to pop get a beer.
yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Like, when you're saying 3+, do you mean over 3.5 goals or over 2.5 goals? 3.5, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I'd always try and avoid over 3.5. It's just like not a lot of games. There's not a huge volume of games hit that, and it's one of those horrible ones to sit through where the game is just staying 0-0 for the first half, and it's going into the second half still 0-0, and you're like, maybe if they score now and then there's a second straight after it, I'm still in with a chance. But yeah, remember we spoke before about. That's mad. That's more chances than a normal full game, like.
Yeah. So I have actually I've just realised that I was hidden from view there. So if anybody was watching, I'm not sure if they would have actually heard me. So apologies if there's any confusion around that.
I was
But what
just
I've just done is
chatting away to myself, was I?
Yeah. So I've done an in-play at halftime treble here. So we're going to actually put both teams to score over 2.5 in the Waterford UCT. Oh, Gary's back now. He'll have some thoughts on this. So the FAI Cup is on, Gary. And
sorry, I just knocked over my mic there, so excuse me.
I saw your kind of coy grin when I sort of said something. I was like, he can't be reacting to what
Yeah,
I
I
just
was
said.
like, I can't believe he's coming to me because my mic is here to fall on the floor. So apologies, I have a new setup this week. So.
Yeah, so one of the matches I was actually going to put in, and this is a really shameless after timing type of thing here, but I was going to put in both teams to scoring over 2.5 in the Waterford United UCD matches, 1-1 at half time. But Waterford were 9-5 there. Eupen were down to 11-4, and Torino are 12-5. So I've done a treble of the three of those, all drawn at half time. 3 away teams, so obviously getting a good bit of value for that. But it is 40-1 for the three of those teams to win. And I mean, 1 goal each would do it. So just let you know, I put that on.
I might need you to repeat that, but I know you have, in fairness, done well with back in Waterford. You know, I always fear going with people when they have a kind of a bias toward the team. And I know you've done that with Arsenal a few times, and it was
funny. Gary mentioned his bogey team. I forget who it was, Atalanta. And I mean, Arsenal and Celtic for me, like, if I tip Celtic to lose, they will win. If I tip them to win, they will lose. If I back corners, there will be none. Whatever I put in a Celtic match, and Arsenal is not far off it either. But I'm not really that biased when it comes to Waterford because I'm like, I don't think I'm biased at all, but I think I'm particularly not with them. I mean, they're definitely underrated in the market at the minute because they were so poor earlier in the season. But anyway, I do think that they have a good shot here at 9-5. So it's the three of them: Waterford, Torino, and Eupen are the three that I've picked there.
Oh, Newcastle scored.
Yeah, same. Maxim, I was watching here, is a good goal.
1-1 going into halftime.
I think that helps us with the shots on target.
Definitely.
I just can't believe that Daniel James isn't so Rafinha has had 3 shots on target and Klitsch has had 2. I don't think that James has had a shot yet, even though he's getting into decent position. So fingers crossed he can get one early in the second half.
That Almere Ajax game is going into the 91st minute. It's 4-2, so it's the highest scoring game in Dutch 2 tonight. Very comfortable.
You mentioned St. Maximus a second ago, Gary. He's one of those players that's just such a joy to watch. Like he's so unpredictable.
Yeah, I think he's kind of, I said he's unpredictable, and he kind of has a little bit of like Mikel Antonio about him, where he's just like really, really direct. Do you know that way? He's kind of probably Mikel Antonio with a better touch. That's how I kind of say. Like players defenders hate coming up against him. I think he's a really good player. I actually just can't believe he was kept at Newcastle this season. I thought a good kind of top 6 team would be in for him. Maybe he was just too expensive, but I could see him playing. He probably wouldn't get into the City's team, and maybe not Chelsea's. But apart from that, like he'd definitely get into Leicester, United, Spurs, Arsenal, West Ham. He definitely would have got into those sort of teams. So I'm a bit surprised nobody went in for him.
Maybe he just had too long left in his con.
That treble, second half treble you're talking about, Torino, Waterford, and who was the third team?
Eupen in the Belgian.
Oh,
FDA.
You're sticking with them. Yeah, went 1-1, but you're keeping the faith.
Yeah, they've drifted there. So I mean, if there was 0-0 at halftime and they score, like I said, they've scored 10 of their 13 goals in the second half. I know Circle scored 4 the last week in the second half, but I still stand over the call. I think that they're more quality than Circle have. So yeah, I'll take them at 11-4.
I'm jumping on this treble now. 40-1. You can't turn that down.
Oh, that's when you see some of those odds. You're just like, you can't say no. Speaking of players, Gary, you kind of mentioned it there about Antonio, and I know there's a lot of talk this week about Fred in particular and Man United's implosion in the, have you call it that, in the Champions League. What are your thoughts on the defeat to Young Boys?
Well, like I tweeted, might have been January or maybe even before that basically if United had Declan Rice, I think they would have challenged last year for the league. And I think if they had assigned Declan Rice instead of Sancho this year, I think, especially with Ronaldo and stuff in there now, they could actually challenge for the league. I don't see why a team like United has to have 2 holding midfielders. And, at the minute they have kind of 2 below par holding midfielders. The Matic, he's over the hill now. He kind of just one season after he left Chelsea, he probably should have been let go and go to do a job for a lower team like Aston Villa or something like that. But he's not kind of at United standard. And I don't think Fred has ever really been up to United standard. He's too slow on the ball. A lot of it goes backwards. Doesn't take enough risks. I don't even think he's a good tackler. There isn't much about Fred that you can kind of.
He's kind of a nothing player.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I think but I think if you took at that level, we're talking about Champions League level, winning the Premiership level, he's just not up to that standard. I think if you put him into a Brighton or if you put him into Watford or somebody like that, he'd probably shine above a lot of the other players, but because he has that little bit of kind of flair, but he's just not good enough for that level that United want to get to. And I really think that having the 2 defensive midfielders in there, it kind of restricts Pogba. I would prefer just put Rice in there and have Pogba kind of roaming and give him free reign. That'd be my kind of thinking on it. But yeah, I don't think Fred is the answer. I think people are starting to slowly realise that. I can't see challenging with that midfield this season.
Yeah, I'd be very curious who makes the transfer decisions at United, because they've had quite a while now to reinforce that midfield. I mean, you've talked about it for at least 2 transfer windows about Declan Rice. So I don't know who is deciding that they need to go out and buy Ronaldo and Sancho, but still have that kind of glaring gap in the centre of the team. But another thing that
obviously, as a West Ham season ticket holder, I don't want Rice to leave. So before all the West Ham fans start at me,
you were Rice out for years.
Executive of United, that'd be the first person I'd be signing. But obviously, the longer he stays at West Ham, the better for us.
Yeah. But the thing that stood out for me, particularly, I mean, obviously it was a deserved red card, but the thing that really stood out for me was that the reaction. I don't know if you were looking at it, but and I don't know his name now, but the young boys coach, as soon as the red card was taken out, and then there was the bit of to-ing and fro-ing about what was going to happen in the player going off the pitch, he was shouting at his players. He called them over and he told them straight away what he wanted them to do. He obviously smelled blood and was like, we're going to go for this. And Solskjaer spent the next 5 minutes talking to both his assistants, just getting information pumped at him. The two of them were talking in his ear, like one each an ear at one stage. And they looked so out of their depth to me. I was like, he doesn't know what to do here. You know what I mean? Getting a player sent off happens to you half dozen times a season. And he just looked like he hadn't a clue what they were going to do next. And obviously,
surely you're prepped for that, for every position and every 10-minute period of the match and every scoreline in that period. I
don't think they are.
Football, you're a professional footballer. That should be drilled into you.
Yeah.
I really don't think they are. If you look at it, I mean, I think Solskjaer is probably, in terms of his actual in-game management, probably one of the worst in England at the minute. But I'd say there's at least half of them are as bad as he is in terms of that. Like when something changes and they have to sit there and they're thinking, they're taking out their book and they're writing, you're just like, man, how can you not be prepared for this scenario that's going to happen to you every month or two? I remember reading before about Ferguson and what he used to do. I mean, he did a series of interviews after he retired, and he talked about what he did every summer, and he sat down with the whole schedule of games he had and worked out every player who was going to play in every game, what he would do if they were 1-0 up, 1-0 down, like you said, at every point in the game, injuries for every player, red cards for anyone in the game. And obviously you get injuries throughout the season and he'd have to tweak it, but he had like a big plan there. You look at some of these other guys now and it's like, they say that a guy gets sent off and it's like panic stations. What are we going to do?
It's amazing.
What they're going to do?
They could even afford to hire someone whose job is just that sort of thing, just like kind of, if something, an injury comes up or a red card happens, or if the opposition get a red card in different positions, and he has the whole playbook of all the different times and matches, the different starting teams.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny you say that.
Players so much. Oh, go ahead, Gary.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was going to say, I don't know if obviously these guys are far better. They're superstars, and I know whenever we played sport, obviously we were just kind of like headless chickens. But I know playing like in both hurling, football, and rugby. If something happened in the match, the first thing you do is look over to the sideline and see what the coach is telling you. If you look over to the sideline and your coach has got two guys talking in his ears and he just looks like a deer in the headlights, you just think, oh crap. And then United just look rattled after that red card. If you looked over, if you were the Swiss crowd, you look over and your coach is telling every player where to go and what to do. You just think, right, we've got this. You know what I mean? Very sloppy.
I was going to jump on what Slats was saying there about playbook, and I think that's the key word. Like, you look at American football, and I know it's a lot more technical or whatever, but those players have to learn so many different things of what's going to happen in games and what they're going to do and how the offense is going to look and how the defense is going to look and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you see Premier League teams going out, they've been on the training field 5 days a week for a couple of hours, and they struggle with their plan A and don't have a plan B. And the good ones probably have like a plan A and a partial plan B, but they definitely don't have a plan C. So how can you get to that level? And as you said, just not be organized for those situations. You see a player coming on and they're being shown all the pages. It's surely they would have learned that during the week of I'm going to be the front post at corners, and if I come on for this players, I'm going to be back at the halfway line for corners. It just, my mind boggles when I see stuff like that.
But even rugby forwards are not, and I mean that's where I spent my very brief rugby playing days as a forward. They're not known for being the most intelligent people in the game of sport, and they just have a load of things for lineouts where they just say to somebody, a 3-letter code, and they know what they're going to do. And there's none of this explaining to them, like you said, with a chalkboard, writing out where you're going to jump and who's going to run where. Very amateurish. Do
you remember the Too Good, Too Bad on Match of the Day? Where
I love that. Yeah, Match of the Day too.
It was Paul Ince managing, wasn't it? And he had a kind of notebook, and each page was kind of a picture of a pitch, like, and you're supposed to write notes on it, but they zoomed in and kind of flipped it upside down, and all it said in one of the boxes was "shoot." That was all that was written on it. I laugh at that every time I think of it. And the way they did it, they kind of zoomed in and flipped it around, because the way he was holding it, it was like, they had to kind
I'm definitely getting that on our socials tomorrow. Though.
Oh, it was brilliant. It's so funny. Shoot, and it's all it says on the whole sheet. But that's like
the crowd are shouting at you as well.
Well, Ron,
it does seem to be the standard, though.
Brescia have gone 2-0 up.
Yeah. Actually, I looked at that, and a lot the goals they've conceded this season, both of them came after they were 2-0 up, so I'm not worried about that. Hopefully they just take their eye off the ball a little bit, so to speak, and concede late on. But yeah, the win is looking good there. It is very funny. Actually, you said about plays, the playbook, and the two you touched on it there. That was another thing that I remember Ferguson said, that they used to train that team. Like, if you need a goal and there's half an hour left, 25 minutes left, 20 minutes left, all the way down to like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. And they all were trained what to do if you need a goal in that amount of time. And they used to run drills over and over and over again. And then you look back on United under him, and like, how annoying as it was that they used to score all those late goals.
So
they
many
used to
times.
score an absolute ton of them.
Yeah.
So not really surprised now when you look at it. But like I said, you can look at certain teams. Solskjaer is one of them. Arteta is another one. There's no way in the world these players are having those sort of training sessions,
Yeah, you wonder what they do drill into them during training, because they obviously all know how to play football already. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just practicing their bloody passing or that. Like, I mean, it's got to be that extra stuff that's gonna, win you those games. Like,
I think so, but they don't seem to do a lot of it. Waterford have just conceded, by the way, so that 40-1 is now looking pretty shoddy.
Nightmare.
2-1.
Yeah, that's tough.
And this other watch, Torino has been all Torino in the second half. Absolutely all.
I like the way we chose Torino to be our feature game, and it's like the only goalless game around the league.
Oh yeah, anyone who's new to the show will know that, or will learn that whatever game is on.
Crotone, goal, 2-1.
Lovely. Yeah. I'm happy with that call. I just said it, they always seem to concede Brescia once they go 2-0 up there. They've got the most quality in the Serie B, but then they just, I guess, at that level, it's a lot of mentality, and they just kind of take their foot off the gas a bit. So hopefully they can now stay on and win this game. But yeah, happy with that call there.
Yeah, that's a decent one. What was the odds on that?
Brescia to win and both teams to score was, I think it was about 5-2. I'll have to check it. And then the over 2.5 on both teams to score was even money, 1-1.
Yeah, so it's the pity that Sassuolo game is like, because as you said, it'll be, Torino dominated in the first half. They had a lot of chances. There's been so many shots on target in that game. So 13 shots for Torino, 4 for Sassuolo, and 5 of Torino's 13 have been on target, and it's still goalless. So if Torino can take the lead even in the last 30 minutes, it's going to force Sassuolo to come out, and it might turn into a bit of a ding dong and get the over 2.5 up. But it's frustrating with the game with those chances, like post being hit left, right, and centre, and it's letting the bet down.
Yeah, big time. The advertised Betalong treble for the show here, just for the actual stream, was over 2.5 in all 3 of those games. You know what I mean? 1 leg in, 1 leg, 1 all, and then this 0-0 is just absolutely killing it. So would have been nice to get the Betalong stream treble up and running too. I'm very disappointed with Sassuolo here now, I must say. But
to those 3, would you have gone for if we'd been doing one each for that treble? It could well have been this.
Probably the Belgian game. It wouldn't have been Sassuolo. I actually said at the end of the article, this is just a gut feeling bet. There was no real, it's too early in the season. I just kind of had a feeling Sassuolo were better than they've looked. And then Enzo was saying the same thing. So I thought, okay, we'll just take a punt on it. The other 2 were the call. Probably slight preference for the Belgium game, even though the Serie B is already in. But yeah, that was the true answer.
God, I'm tempted just to go back and back this double, like Torino and Eupen, because they both seem on top the second half, having been on top the first half as well, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's decent odds. Like, they're both around 3-1, 7-2. Like, so I think I'm going to get on that. I know chasing is never a good idea, but
Torino just gone to 16-5. And then if we check, Eupen are 10-3. So yeah, that double is now 18-1. So that's pretty good going. So Sassuolo look to, they haven't really done anything, but they slowly look to be getting a bit of a foothold back in the match. So just bear that in mind. Don't go too big on it.
Yeah, no, I've just gone a 10 on the double.
Nice.
18-1.
Cool. So while we have a bit of time left and before we get too close to the end of these matches, and it might start getting very exciting, I know there's some racing at the weekend, Gary, that you've been looking at.
So tomorrow is a big meeting at Ayr in Scotland. So I picked out 3 at Ayr. It was good last week to get the 8-1 winner. So we had Atomic Jones last week at 8-1. Actually went off 10-1. So obviously tipped up at 8-1, but went off 10-1. So most people would have backed it with a best odds guaranteed firm and got the 10-1. A bit frustrating. I tipped up a double last week and one leg came in and one leg didn't. So it was 2 out of 4 tips on the day. But then anybody who was watching the stream last week and we discussed the St. Ledger in a bit of depth, LB, we kind of gave the forecast in the St. Ledger. So I think that paid 8-1 as well, or 7-1, something like that. So it was a decent weekend all around with those bets last week, and hopefully we can kind of have a reenactment of that this week. This week,
actually, I missed the 8-1 myself. I did the reverse forecast, but I missed the outright winner that you had earlier in the day. But yeah, very good racing tip so far.
Yeah, I was delighted with that because it's been a while since we've had a winner. The column collectively, since we revamped the website in April, is up about 20 units. And I think you've got something to tell us there, have you, by your face?
Oh, very nearly a Sassuolo goal, but
it's starting to feel like it's destined for 0-0 with all these changes.
I didn't know whether it was the shock at the racing being up 20 units or whether it was something that happened to the football match.
Not according to my Bet365 account, you're not up 20 units, Gary.
Well, that's it. The P&L. See, you have to follow them all. You can't give up on it, you know. So, anyway, tomorrow's we've one shorty, so I'll go through the shorty first. So, it's a horse called Head Mistress in the 305. So, this is a fillies race. She's coming out from Ireland. Gerald Lyons in great form. I think he's 21% over the last 14 days. It's a competitive enough race, but looking at her 2 runs, she won pretty well on debut. And then last time out, looked even better. She's going up a furlong. That should suit her. So I think 7-2, even though she's favourite at the minute at 7-2, I still think it's a decent bet. And then in the Gold Cup and the Silver Cup. So we'll start with the Silver Cup. So these are 2 traditional races, sprint races. It's like usually won by a long odd shot. So that's what I've gone for. So regular followers will be familiar with Golden Apollo. So I tipped him up probably about 6 weeks ago. So I think it was Rippin that time. But he ran a decent race, finished second at 12-1, so landed the each way money. And I actually changed my mind today because I was watching the racing earlier on and it was good to firm ground. And Golden Apollo would have kind of no chance of good to firm ground tomorrow. But at about 1 o'clock, the heavens just opened and it rained nearly all day long. So I checked the weather forecast and it was to rain most of this evening. And then they're giving rain tomorrow as well, kind of late afternoon. So if the rain sets in and gets the ground back to kind of good or good to soft, I think Golden Apollo has a very good chance because his forte is staying. He just hasn't got the speed to kind of keep up with the rest of them sometimes. So at 22-1, William Hill are paying 6 places. A load of other firms are paying 5 places. But William Hill were top price, 22-1 for 6 places, and a lot of other firms are kind of 18-1 for 5 places. So if you have a William Hill account, set it up and go with them. But 22-1 is a decent price. So that's in the 2:30 at Ayr tomorrow. And then in the big race, which is the Gold Cup, the Ayr Gold Cup, I've gone with a 40-1 outsider. This is kind of the reverse of that. William Hill are 40-1, they're paying 6 places, but you can get 50-1 if you take 5 places or less for some other firms. So the horse is Lahore, has patches of form, finished 6th in this race last year off a higher marks. I think he was rated £7 higher. So it was 50-1 that day and ran a decent race. I think tomorrow might suit him. I said down at £7. I give him a decent shout. Be happy with a place at 40-1, but I think he has a decent chance of the win. So they're the 3 horses. As I said, 2 pretty juicy prices and 1 fave. But hopefully, I'd be happy if you gave me 2 places and a win now. I'd be happy. But I do think that Golden Apollo has a good chance, and Lahore has a really good outside chance.
Yeah, at those odds, it's hard to go wrong, really. So definitely going to take a punt on those. You mentioned something there, and actually this is something for the site in general, SportsRunDown.com, if anyone is unfamiliar with what we do. But we're going to have a guest appearance on the site soon, doing a write-up on how the weather impacts different sports with a particular focus on the NFL. But you mentioned that you were looking at the forecast. How much rain would it take, like in general, would you be looking at for the ground to change?
So it kind of depends, really. It depends on the track. So some tracks drain a lot quicker than others. And then it also depends on the water table. So if you had, like, the winter, usually it will only take maybe 2 or 3 mils to change something, because let's say you have a wet October and a dry enough November, the top of the ground will start drying out, but the water table is still fairly high from all of the rain. So it doesn't take that much other rain for it to kind of get soft again, if you know what I mean. Whereas in the summer, like that good to firm ground, it could take quite a bit more. So it might take 5 or 6 mils for it to start turning from good to firm to good. So it kind of depends on a number of different factors. Obviously, the track, some tracks are kind of sloped, so they have a better drainage than others. The big tracks will have money spent on them trying to, get the water to drain out of them and stuff. So it depends track to track, but I'd say 2 or 3 mils would change it from like whatever it was, so good to firm to good. Anything more than that would be changing it a bit more. And then, as I said, you do have to factor in whether, kind of time of the year and seasonality and what the weather has been like previously. But it's definitely something that, like, when you can spend an awful lot of time analysing horses' races and things like that, but it's one of the key factors is how they go on the ground, and it's one of the easiest things to kind of overlook and be like, oh, they won off this mark previously, so they're on a good mark, I'll back them, or they're 2 from 2 at that track, so I'll back them. But they could be 2 from 2 on good to firm, and you're backing them on good to soft. It's not the same. So I think it's actually quite a big thing to factor in when you're backing horses.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting because, like, obviously I get the difference in the ground, but when people talk about the weather, sometimes I've seen it raining and people don't really comment on the weather, and then other times, like you said, nearly a few showers look like they'll make a change, but the water table and all that side of it's actually pretty interesting to know. So
yeah, and I said it does really depend on like the track, and there's a number of different variables, but there's tracks that are renowned. So like Haydock is normally like a bog, that way. And actually this summer was the first time, I think, in a long time that they raced on good to firm ground, because it was just such a dry summer. But usually they'd be kind of good ground at a maximum all year round. And when it gets into the winter, they're like, soft and heavy ground kind of thing. Same with Chepstow. Like Chepstow's in Wales, and it's always like just, as I said, a bog. It's always heavy, especially during the winter. Like the amount of the Welsh Grand National is run at Chepstow, and the amount of Grand Nationals that have had to be reorganised because of waterlogging and things like that is
I take it then, Gary, trainers pick specific horses to run these tracks that they'll fare better on that soft ground.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, you see that like some horses will act on it, some horses won't, and the trainers will know that. They'll know from, like, if you watch a horse's action, the way they run, some of them have like an action where they kind of dig into the ground, others have a more kind of flow in action. So if they're digging in, usually it means they like the soft, whereas if they're kind of more kind of light on their feet, you know, they're better on the quicker ground. So the trainers will know that from watching them. Sorry, just to go back to the football, Brescia have thrown away a 2-goal lead. Crotone have equalised there.
Wow.
But yeah, it's interesting in the horse racing, but I said it's something you need to kind of just know your tracks, keep an eye on the weather forecast, and see what it's going to do, and then kind of know your horses.
Just by the way, that in that Brescia game, that both of those Crotone goals have come from Ulatieri. So he now has 5 goals in 3 games, and yeah, I mean, he was, like I said, he was 12-5 for a single goal. I don't even know what he was. I didn't even think to look at it. Yeah.
Jesus. And did you back him?
I'm glad
we backed him.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, backed him.
I didn't, and I should have.
Yeah, I'm actually annoyed. I took him out of the SRT selections and moved him down into the personal bet, so my P&L is still probably toxic for the night. Well, actually, it could be okay if Eupen get the winner, but yeah, it seemed like what really stood out to me about that was that quite often in the Serie B, you won't see individual goal scorers priced up. And then he was there and he was about 10 down the market. So, yeah, very happy with that.
Yeah, that was a great
one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'll be curious now, will his odds just change drastically? Like, I could be, I mean, not to be nothing special about me, but I could be the only person in England or Ireland to have that guy back for a goal, because I can't imagine there's a huge amount of Serie B goal scorers.
Yeah, it's just a case of how much will be enough for the bookies to notice, like, and actually change that.
Yeah, hopefully not much, because yeah, if he's a good price again next weekend, he's a serious talent. And like I said, he had a great scoring record last season as well, and he's hit the ground running this season. So glad we called him out in the article and on the stream.
Yeah, good shout.
But there are 7 minutes left in that game, so it'd be great if Brescia could just get a winner. But on the article, so we actually had, just for the SRE selections, we just had over 2.5 on both teams to score, so that's after cruising in. The Sassuolo one is looking unlikely now, and then time for an Eupen winner. So yeah, hopefully it comes in Belgium at least.
Yeah, Eupen have definitely been on top based on the stats. The second half, they've been dominating. Plenty of shots on target.
Yeah, God, it was a good cross into the box there for Torino, and I had the forward. I missed him again, at number 17, but he fell. He just slipped. Legs went out from under him. Would have been probably a free header around the 6-yard box. So he had so many chances. While there's a bit of time left in these matches, and Waterford equalised, by the way. So
really,
at Trevor's back on, yeah. So it's 2-2 in Waterford, 2-2 in Crotone, 1-1 in the Circle, and 0-0 in the Sassuolo game.
Mm.
Oh God, Torino! This is just brutal to watch. They've had so many chances. Sassuolo have been really disappointed, by the way. I'm not sure if either of you've been watching much of this, but really, really disappointing.
No, I haven't been watching at all.
They started brightly enough, did they? Or did they start the second half? A few chances.
They had a few chances early in the game, and then I don't think they did in the second half. Around the start of the second half, I would have been catching up on my 5 scorers homework, so I can't actually say I didn't see the very start of the second half.
Oh, sorry, I do. I think it was the opening of the game, and just when it was starting to pick up, when it was going, there was some end-to-end action there for a few minutes, and then Torino started kind of dominating a bit after that.
Yeah. While maybe we can look at some of the American sports, Gary, briefly before the matches, the Serie A and the Belgian matches. Hold on. Oh, this is a one-on-one with the keeper. He's gone around the keeper. He's gone too wide, and he put it into the side netting. Oh my goodness! A literal one-on-one with Torino. One-on-one, like ran over the edge of the D, like straight into the middle of the box. The keeper came out. He put it to the right and around the keeper, and his touch wasn't good enough, and he just ended up going too far wide and put it into the side net. Like Torino could have 6 goals in this match. Honestly, this is just absolutely galling. Yeah, I would be surprised if Sask catch them on the counter now late on, because Torino seem to be throwing everything at this.
Still a bit of time anyway.
Yeah. For the big ACA that we did, the 46-1 one, it's probably not going to happen now. But if there's any hope of it, we do need a Brescia winner in the next, 4 minutes?
Yeah, not so much time there.
No, but not bad. We put 3 bets in that game, and 2 of them are in at 12-5 in even money. So pretty happy with that. Just in terms of the website, by the way, while we have a few minutes here, the usual. So I know there was a bit of we got, what would you call it, viewer response or reader response around the college football articles. It's not posted yet for this weekend, so it'll be posted hopefully tonight or early tomorrow morning. We'll have it ready, but I did want to just share 1 or 2 of the bets that we have in that one. There's a couple of huge prices at the weekend that I like in the college football. One of the ones I'm going to look at is probably unsurprising to anyone who's read the article the last few weeks, is the Alabama-Florida match. It is they're 17-point favorites. I'm not sure if you've looked at any of the Alabama stuff recently, Gary. I know you did in their opening game. They're 17-point favorites away to Florida in the appropriately named Swamp. And I think it could be an upset here. Now, I've been against Bama the last 2 weeks, but I did caveat it. I mean, they're definitely the best school in the game, but they're not as good as people make them out to be. I'm not sure if you saw the clips online of their head coach, Nick Saban, going absolutely mental. They were playing a very, very low school. They actually had to pay this school about $800,000 just to play them, because they were obviously going to beat them so badly. And they let in 2 touchdowns against them, and he was just absolutely homicidal about it. And they just haven't looked to their usual standard here. So I think 17 points away, they're 5-1. Is that the right? Yeah, Florida 5-1. I'm definitely going to back the 5-1, but I think the 17 points looks like a really, really kind of safe underdog call there. We played last season.
Bama, one of the teams, I know you backed 2 teams at like even money that they wouldn't win all of their games, and the first came in like the first week, or was it week 0 even?
Yeah, so Clemson were 11-10 to win under 11.5 games out of 12, and Bama were 10-11 to win under 11.5 games out of 12. And Clemson lost their opener, so that was the earliest season-long bet I've ever won.
That's a view.
And it was ridiculous. I mean, it must have just been one of those lines we've talked about where the bookies are just covering themselves because they have too much money on the other side. There's no way a team should be. And Clemson have a tough schedule, so that's that one done. Bama were 10-11 for the same thing. I think they've got 3 really tough games, this being one of them this season. So yeah, they played last season in the SEC championship game, and it was 52-46, which is, a 6-point game. And it was probably the only time, maybe one of 2 times in the whole season, that Bama were under pressure last year. They've lost a lot of players. They don't look anything as good as they did look last year. And I just think that this is a huge game for Florida. It kind of isn't for Bama. I think 17 points is ridiculous. They could blow them out of the water. And if they do, I think I'm going to stop tipping against Alabama here, because I don't want to go over a cliff with them. But they definitely looked overrated, or they definitely are overrated as good as they are. And I think 17 points away is an awful lot to give up to somebody else. And then there's going to be 4 or 5 of these underdogs, but I'll just do one more for the stream here. There is USC on the way to Washington State. And I'm not sure if anyone watching the show has been following USC, but they're an absolute car crash. They just sacked their manager, or their head coach, excuse me. They sacked him last week. They put up a really, really miserable performance against California rival Stanford. And I just think that it's just one of those ones they're kind of lost at the minute. I don't think they're going to. The one risk is they'll put in a performance, play for the jersey type of thing. I just don't see it happening this week. They knew the manager was probably hanging on by a thread. He could have been sacked at any point over the last, any point last season, or between then and now, he could have lost his job. And I think the players really had if they were going to play for the jersey, they would have done it already. I don't think they're able to. They're away to Washington State. They're at home. They're 7-point underdogs, and they're 12-5, and that's another kind of, for me, it's a very solid money line bet there. I'll look at that one, and there'll be 3 more of these up in the article that we'll put out tonight. But just wanted to give a little preview for anyone who is waiting on that, because I know we did get some viewer feedback on those articles.
Yeah, I haven't really been following. So I followed kind of week 1, but I didn't really get to follow it last week. So I'm going to try and get back into it over the coming weeks. Just with the NFL kicking off and things like that, it's been tough to
this time of the year is such a busy period for sport. You've got, obviously, all the leagues are in full swing. You've got college football, NFL, Champions League is back, Europa League is back. It's just endless sport from freaking Monday through Sunday every single week. So from now till Christmas is going to be a serious balancing test to keep everything going. But yeah, it's worth looking into. There's some great prices in the college football. And it's always in those games that are slightly below the main ones. You know, you'll have, maybe if you go against some of the big teams, or else you just ignore them entirely and look at some of the smaller matchups. There's some really good betting value out there. The reason the article is late this week is that I was just so crushed by the late Miami field goal to beat Appalachian State. It was absolute killer. I just couldn't get myself to. I was looking at the way I do it is like I always look 1 week ahead. So I have my, like now obviously it's week 3, and I already have my week 4 picks kind of made. And then I will kind of tweak them as I watch the matches this week and think, okay, I was overly confident here or whatever. So I had my notes ready for this week, last weekend, and then was watching App State. They were winning at one point in the second end of the second, start of the third quarter. It looked really good, and then they just a couple of mistakes, and then Miami got that 45-yard, pretty long field goal for college football, and they just hung on then at the end and won it by 2 points. So an absolute kick in the backside after that. I couldn't bring myself to start this week, but anyway, hopefully we get a couple of wins under the belt here and then back to normal after that.
It's a different sport, but if it helps cheer you up, Eupen have just gone 2-1 up. So
I just saw that too. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. Well, if they can hang on now, what is it? 8 minutes. We can chalk that down as a definite angle for the future when Cercle Brugge score 3 or more later the following.
I think even if they were to equalize, I mean, it's still a good call, and they've still underperformed given they were.
Well, actually, if they do equalise, the other bet that I threw up there of over 1.5 second half goals is going to come in. So, yeah, I'd be happy with that.
I think I'd be happier with a 3-1 Eupen, to be honest, than 2-1.
Yeah, true. Didn't even think of that. There's just the Belgian league is very different, I find, to a lot of other leagues because they have the playoff process, and teams.
The strange,
you got your big
strange system.
It really is. Like, it's cool when you get to the playoffs, but then you get to January and there's this weird lull because if you're second, you're going to finish in the playoff positions. But then what it does mean is that the teams from say 4th to 10th, there's a real kind of. It reminds me a bit of the championship. There's a real kind of like marathon feel to it. It's just go, go, go. Because you got to make sure that you get into that championship playoff part. And then there's a couple of really strange teams in the Belgian league, Circle being one of them. Like they can have really great moments, but generally just week to week, they're absolutely terrible. So, yeah, good value there. It's finished in the Serie B, by the way. So we got two of the markets up, but Brescia didn't hang on for the win. So, still 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Not bad at all. And I'm just thinking if Torino do score here, like that double I backed not long ago, that'd be nice. 180 quid off a tenner.
If Enzo is watching in, I'm cheering on Sassuolo for his column, just to add that in. 2 traders.
Yeah, got Torino backed and Sassuolo backed, so I feel like the draw is now nailed on.
Yeah.
Are we moving on to the NFL?
Yeah, we kind of suppose we got a bit of time. I thought we'd actually have less time, but we now do have a bit of time. So yeah, go ahead, lads.
No, nothing. I won't say anything. Just don't move on. There's no point moving on to NFL just yet. Let's just say that much.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
We just have to hold our breath and see.
Oh yeah, I see it now.
We'll let him catch up with us. For those who don't know,
This is like being back in secondary school and class gets the answer and then they need an extra 3 minutes for me to get there myself. But, 1-0 Torino. There was no reaction to that for a second. I thought that has just crashed. 1-0 Torino. That goal has been coming. Like, my God, it has been coming. They absolutely deserve nothing less.
So you just waiting for Waterford now?
Waterford in the treble, and I have a double on Torino and Eupen, a tenner at 18-1. So I just need that to bloody hang on.
We both have that double. I trailed you on that double.
Oh, did you?
So we both have the double.
That's the job.
Yeah, and the treble.
Sanford asking me.
Currently sitting on it. You said you were cheering on Sassuolo for Enzo. You didn't want to rock the boat.
Fuck you, Enzo.
That reminds me of the time last season. I probably shouldn't be laughing at this, but especially as neither Lee or PK or 2021 teammates were unavailable to respond to it. But when we had the 200-1 horse that came in, we hadn't said it to people the way it had panned out. I mean, the way it panned out, I probably got the bet on 30 seconds before the race. And then we just came on the air and we're talking about what a great win the two lads were absolutely pulling. Absolutely right. You saw as well. God.
And as far as I remember, like, that wasn't even a tip. That was just some fellow was at the stable and just saw this horse and just said, that horse looks like he's rearing to go or something, wasn't it?
That fella being... Yeah. Well, I was there, and then, we got a heads up that he was running the next time. Like, so.
I was actually out for a walk after work one day, or after an early leave from work one day, and it was lashing rain, so I wouldn't even usually have the phone out. For some reason, I saw it. I looked it on. He was like 120-1. You know, Bet365 sometimes go crazy prices on the outsider horses. Went 120-1, put a bit on that, like 150-1, backed him again, 200-1. I was like, this is crazy. And then we actually looked at the race in a bit more detail. I was like, this has a really good chance. Ran up to Corral, and the Corral and Woolwich, if anyone knows it, is not exactly the most appealing of bookmakers, but went in there, lumped on him again.
No offense to Corral, the Paddy Power, the Jennings, etc. aren't appealing either.
Yeah, no offense to Woolwich, but all the bookies in Woolwich are absolutely the pits. But yeah, so it was made out like a bandit that day. It was great. So we are. There's 5 minutes left in the Belgian match. So hopefully Eupen can hang on there. 6-7 minutes left in the Serie A. So hopefully, hopefully for us, Torino win, but it's a kick for the side P&L, and then 10 minutes left for Waterford to grab one there.
Waterford game is suspended, and it's a yellow card for UCD. I don't know, is this possibly a penalty, or is it just no? No, it's not. Yeah, it was just maybe the yellow could have been
one of those middle of nowhere.
It is. The free kick has been
descent in the centre circle.
Oh, it wasn't the centre circle. They've kind of moved it up actually a bit closer to the box, but. Would have been nice for a penalty there, no?
Yeah, it'd be lovely. Way to end the show.
God, yeah, it's usually the last.
Probably I
was going to say usually the last 10 minutes where it all falls apart. But, it's been kind of coming together nicely here the last five minutes or so.
Yeah. Eupen have had 8 shots on target in this game. They've really, really put the pressure onto Cercle here. So hopefully we can just see this one out now. 2 minutes to go. Sassuolo have finally started playing here. Obviously just less than 4 minutes left, or less than 5 minutes left. Probably haven't given themselves enough time to get anything from the match. But yeah, we're curious to get Enzo's thoughts on this when we debrief during the week, because at some point we actually talked. Was it me and you, Gary, or if it was me and Enzo, were talking about at what point do you say a team has been, if they're lucky for so long or they're unlucky for so long, at what point do you just accept that they're actually good or kind of crap? And Sassuolo are certainly drifting into that territory here.
There was one bet I was looking at for the weekend. I don't know, is now a good time to run through that, or do we want to hold on for these last few minutes?
Oh yeah,
it should only take a second. So I was saying about Camber got promoted from the Eerste Divisie up to the big leagues this season, and they haven't done too badly. I think they're like 2 wins from 4 games, and they've scored in all 4 of their games. So I was thinking Ajax and both teams to score. Ajax are home to them on Saturday, 7 p.m. I was thinking Ajax and both teams to score would be a good bet, and I went in then, and Ajax are like 1-16, which I didn't think it'd be close to that. I thought maybe they'd be 1-2 or 1-4 at a stretch. 1-16 seems a bit outrageous, but then because they're such tight odds, the both teams to score, is then obviously higher because Ajax are supposed to dominate that match, and Ajax to win and both teams to score is 7-5. I actually think there's a bit of value there. I could see Ajax, conceding, winning. I think PSV beat Cambuur like 4-1, and I could see this game being something similar to that. I think 7-5 is a decent shout there.
Yeah, I like the sound of that actually.
That's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. GMT. I think Daniel James, he might have gone off a while ago, but I think he's been subbed off, has he?
Yeah, sorry, he did get subbed off, yeah. It's pretty disappointing.
Did he even get one shot on target?
So open. And I think Rafinha has had like 4 shots, 4 on target. Klitsch has had 3 on target. Bamford has probably 2 on target. So there's been lots of shots on target, but just didn't fall to James. He had 2 shots himself, but none of them were on target.
Yeah, that's disappointing, all right. But, geez, I'm just hoping this double holds on now and maybe Waterford make it an excellent night.
Yeah, what is it there? 83 minutes gone. So the one hesitation with that now is that it's a cup match, and you just don't want to lose it, so you might just hang on and hope for wait for the extra time.
Well, it'll go to extra time rather than a replay, will it?
I assume it will. I actually don't know.
Yeah,
for a fact.
Yeah, either way though, whether it's a replay or extra time, it could get a bit cagey toward the end. They mightn't necessarily risk it.
Yeah.
That said, they still, just based on the Bet365 stats, it looks like they're both kind of going at it a bit. They're both having plenty of attacks and getting a few shots off as well.
Yeah.
Eupen is into the 4th minute of 4 minutes injury time.
Oh no. Oh yeah. And I actually flicked over to that for a second, and it was looking very, very flat. So I just went back to the Serie A match. Flat
is good when you have a 2-1 lead, and you're just hoping it stays that way.
Sassuolo have a dangerous corner here. There was a really, really hammy attempt at a dive there for a penalty. He took a shot, and when you kind of swing high, and it just kind of caught the defender across the hip, and then he bounced off the defender like he'd been electrocuted. The referee was having none of it. I was hoping for a free out. That was a great save there. Actually, a really good header off that corner for Sassuolo. They're really putting some pressure on now, Sassuolo. Enzo will be very disappointed that they couldn't have done it earlier in the match. The keeper's caught that in the air now and is just taking his sweet time about doing anything with it.
So LB, like in fairness, your pre-game picks and your in-play picks have all been pretty decent tonight, all profitable overall.
Yeah, I'm actually well up tonight now, which is a real relief because, like I said, I had that unlucky, I had unhappy end to the college football last weekend, and I got absolutely annihilated on the Champions League and Europa League during the week. So I was sort of down in the dumps tipping wise, but
deja vu here in the Waterford game. It's suspended with a UCD yellow card. Waterford were on what Bet365 was calling a dangerous attack, but we know that could just be they've possession inside the UCD half. It's staying suspended a little longer. So this is going into the 90th minute, and it's still just showing UCD yellow card, but it's also still suspended. Like I was saying, it was a Waterford dangerous attack. just before it went suspended.
Usually it's Atlanta and Atalanta that we get mixed up.
Yeah.
The odd Friday night.
Shite.
Yeah, Waterford and Watford. Not a penalty.
No, same thing. It's come back with a free kick inside the centre circle. Oh, it's moved it up again. Jeez, it's identical to what happened the last time, except it stayed suspended for that bit longer. But a dangerous free kick or an attacking free kick, might be an opportunity.
Yeah,
and there's been a lot of bookings and stuff there, so there might be a bit added on by the ref,
That's true, Jesus. Yeah, there's been 8 yellow cards, but they're definitely.
Jeez, that's a good few.
Yeah,
there was twice where there must have been a few kind of brawls, because there's twice that both teams had a player carded in the same minute, which doesn't happen too often. Eupen is in anyway, so that's confirmed.
Yeah.
Which is a great show. As I said, it'll be 5-2 for Eupen. I know you tipped it up on the website, 17-10, so we'll have to put that in the P&L, but 5-2 was a quality price.
There's such a temptation when they drift before kickoff that you'd update the odds, but then you'd obviously have to do it for the ones that tighten.
It's in the opposite direction, yeah.
Go Watford.
Yes.
No way.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Do. Yeah.
Go.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
Brilliant.
I'm trying for Watford anyway to get through the cup. So that's, if Sassuolo can hang on now the last 30 seconds, and Watford can hang on a little bit longer than that.
We're immediately hoping for little injury time now in that Waterford game.
Yeah.
Most of those yellows were in the first half. That should already be accounted for.
Yeah. There's 8 cards all the time, ref. Come on. Check it. Presumably there's no cash out on this now. With it being so late.
Can't believe I didn't get on that.
So tonight between the article and
Jesus, I could cash out for a nice bit. Oh God, I think I'm gonna let it run.
Cashing out there.
You have to let it run at this stage. That's
250 out of 310.
That's poor. I can take 340 out of 380.
Sorry, that froze for me there. What can you take, LB?
340 of 380.
Oh yeah, now I can take. What's going on? It's going all over the place. Was there a goal? I don't know what's happening. I need to flick off it because it's just jumping everywhere.
Okay, so on a seriously dangerous attack here.
The Torino game has gone full time now. And
Torino as well has gone full time. So you just went on Waterford. It's in the bank. Well, it should be in the bank.
But it's into the third minute of injury time. But there's going to be probably 5 minutes here. Can you see how much injury time is in the Waterford game?
In Waterford?
No, but I did a double. So I did a double of, before I said to you about the treble, I actually did a double of Waterford and Torino. And that is offering me a 90-cent cash out on my tenner, which would imply that something has gone wrong.
That's what I was seeing as well, but I think it's kind of more just that they're nearly suspending it and not offering.
No, Waterford are still 1 to 100 in that game.
Yeah, they're 1 to 100 on Betfair, so.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. So tonight I've had in the all action act, I take Eupen to win 17-10, Brescia, Crotone over 2.5 and both teams to score evens. They both came in. Mulatieri to score at 12-5. And then the in-play double at 18-1 and the in-play treble at 40-1. So that is pretty happy corner half I've had in terms of the
Yeah. What did you get? 40-1 and what did you get the double? 18 as well, was it?
Sorry. Say that again, Slats.
What did you get the double at? You tailed me, you were saying.
Let me take a look at it. I think I got it at 18-1.
18 as well, yeah.
So got 18-1. I actually did another one that was 17-1, which was the one that had Waterford in it, just Waterford and Torino, and then the treble. It was actually, I thought it was 40. It was 39-1.
God, I'm actually raging. The treble I had, when you just have a kind of an odd number in your account, I had like 117.79, so I just put 7.79 on the treble instead of a tenner.
You did the treble as well. Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah, the treble, but that's the 40-1 shot, right? And then the double is 18-1. So,
Oh yeah, class.
yeah, I mean, they'll still pay out. I think I'll be getting upward of €400 out of them anyway. Jesus, nearly 500, yeah. Christ, that's not a bad night's work.
No, not at all.
So I thought that I was too lazy to go in and back them.
That was not the worst. You said it about the racing earlier, like, you said, you have to follow them all or something to that effect. And there's nothing worse than leaving one just pass you by. And you're just like, oh my goodness gracious, it's so frustrating.
Especially when everyone else is on it and the FOMO is just...
Yeah. No, like, I mean, I'm happy for you lads. I sure what put on there, so grand. But obviously anybody else watching in that has backed it as well, fair play. But yeah, just take it involved. I'm still blaming Enzo on it because I was cheering.
Full-time Waterford, blaming Enzo. Full-time Waterford there, so that's in. Cheers.
Enzo, if you're watching, you owe me £500.
When we've talked about it before about in-play betting. And when you're watching the matches, there's such scope for good bets. That's something we always tell people, and anyone watching the show, especially if you're a bit new to betting, there's some great in-play prices available on matches, because obviously if the bookies have their exposure on one side, they're not necessarily going to update the prices to reflect the way the game has gone. So, yeah, very, very happy with the way that's panned out.
Yeah, excellent stuff. I haven't been paid yet.
I'm going to watch the highlights of the...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Gary, go on. I was going to watch the highlights of Brescia Crotone later on, of the Brescia Crotone match, because I didn't see much of it, very, very little, in fact, tonight. But it actually looks like Crotone had more of the chances, and certainly had more of the possession. So I'm going to have to see how that looked, and maybe Crotone are actually still underrated. Maybe they're still underrated a bit, because they haven't won yet in the league. So be interesting. But what were you going to say, Gary?
Oh no, I was saying we better move on to the NFL soon because we're getting close to the end of the show.
Oh yeah, of course. Stats, I know you think you might have had a clash at the end, so if you're not going to be able to around for this, that's okay. But we will move into the NFL. Before we might drop, go ahead, and we will catch you.
Well on your winning, Stats.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, LB, for making that a profitable night all around.
Yeah, I'm chuffed.
I look forward to tailing your college football over the weekend.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to make a note to get that out now tonight, just in case people are a bit stuck for time tomorrow.
I'll be clicking refreshed on the website, waiting to see it update.
Yeah.
All right, nice one, lads. I will chat to you later. Cheers.
Yeah, good luck. So, just before we dive into the NFL in a bit more detail, so anyone who watched the show last week will know that we have entered the Circa Millions contest. But before we go through the picks on that, we'll make them live on air here for anyone who's interested in watching. Before we do, just let us know in the comments what your picks would be. So any team against the spread in the NFL this weekend, we're going to go through our choices, and then we'll make our final five there together. But before we do that, just a reminder that we do have an NFL and college football section on the SportsRunDown.com website. And Gary, the NFL has been going pretty well recently. We've got a couple of new contributors in there, and obviously, you set the tone for the NFL segment a couple of seasons ago with a 40-1 ACA, and we've been kind of living up to that expectation. I thought maybe you set the bar too high, but there's been a couple of great bets so far from the guys this season.
Yeah, exactly. Like the lads have hit the ground running. So we had a winning ACA on our treble on Sunday. So it was I think it was 6-1 treble, which is brilliant. And then we had a winning bet builder on Monday Night Football as well. So like quality tipping all around. In the anytime touchdown score ACA we had as well, we were 2 from 4, but the biggest price one of those won at 5-2. So that was still in profit as well. Now it was a slight profit, but essentially if you put a level stake, so pound, euro, dollar, and all of the tips for week 1 of the NFL, you'd be up 15.50. So not a bad return on investment in week 1. So hopefully we can kick on now in week 2 and keep that profit going. As you mentioned, that 41 shot, the player who got that double touchdown last season, Darius Layton. He actually scored last night and was 5-1. So I'm a bit aggro. I didn't back him. I had looked at him, and then I wasn't actually staying up to watch the game. So I said I wouldn't have a bet on it, and I looked this morning, and he got it. But he's a player to track because he's always decent price, and he gets into the touch or into the end zone a couple of times a season. So we're worth watching out for. But again, all of our NFL action will be up over the weekend. So you're probably looking at tomorrow afternoon. We have to wait a little bit longer for bookies to price up all of the markets, but most of them seem to have priced them up now. So we'll be on that. So check back tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, Sunday morning, and you'll see all of the good content up there. Fingers crossed we can get more winners.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we will now look at the Circa picks this week. So anyone who was with us last week will know that we put our best 5 together on the screen. So I went through my 5, Gary went through his 5, and then we combined them for our best 5 overall. They were our official picks. So we said, if you got any thoughts on that, by all means, drop us a comment either on YouTube or Facebook, and we will try to have a conversation with you about them if we see the comments in time. It was a little bit disappointing, Gary, for me, because between us, I got 4 out of 5 and you got 4 out of 5, and then we combined for 3 out of 5, which is obviously not ideal.
Yeah, like we kind of got a bit too clever about it. I think we start bringing the Ravens Raiders game into it, and overthinking that game and kind of let us down. I wouldn't be.
Do you know what though? I was reading about this before. Like the biggest statistic, or the statistic that has the biggest impact on whether a team covers the spread or not is fumbles and losses of possession. So it's obviously the biggest kind of unknown before a game. And the 2 Baltimore fumbles were absolutely killers last week. I mean, they could have one led Vegas back into the game, and then the other one in overtime lost them the game. So in one sense, obviously it lost, but I mean, it was a very unlucky call at the same time, I think.
Yeah, like it was unlucky, but it just. I don't think it was a game that we'd done the proper research on. Whereas the other picks, to our original 5 picks each, we'd obviously all done the research on, and then to kind of pivot and go to a pick that wasn't in those selections. So there wasn't 10 because we had some overlapping, but let's say we had 9 selections. Like the Ravens weren't in there, so we shouldn't have deviated.
We had 8. We had 8.
We shouldn't have deviated outside of those 8, and we should have picked 5 from 8. In my opinion, that's the disappointing thing. The Packers obviously got trounced. I don't think anybody could have predicted them to play as bad as you said, turnovers, etc. You can't win games when you're doing that. So I'm not really too disappointed with the Packers result, even though it's disappointing to have a loss in there. But it was the Ravens one that kind of grated at me, to be honest. But
yeah. So speaking about overlaps, you can see on the screen there my picks, and the first one up is San Francisco. And if we quickly just change to Gary's picks, you can also see that you have the 49ers as well. So I mean, they're very, very impressive last weekend. It's no surprise that we both have them. Although what is slightly surprising to me is we're both in a couple of private NFL pick'em competitions, and they're not that popular a pick. So I'm wondering why you think people might have moved away from San Francisco this week, Gary.
Well, obviously, there's a couple of injuries that they picked up. So Raheem Mostert, obviously, he's out, I think, for a season now. He originally was like 8 to 10 weeks, but I think he's out for a season. And they picked up another injury on defense. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was. I think it was a linebacker was injured as well. So, kind of following on from last season, they were just depleted last season. Very early on, and kind of had to write the season off. So hopefully, as a 49ers fan, I hope it's not going that way. But that's probably why teams people are kind of not fancying them as much as I think they probably should. I suppose the other thing you can take into it is the second road game, in a row.
So that's actually what I was going to bring up. So you mentioned injuries there, and in my research for this during the summer, obviously I mentioned the fumbles as one of the biggest unknowns, but the 2 things that seem to have the biggest overreaction from the public is injuries and it's not the thing you just mentioned there. Sorry, I made a different point. It was going to be it's injuries and big losses. But one of the things that I liked about the second away game or the second road game is that I saw a few people online saying words to that effect. Oh, they had to travel to Detroit, and now they have to travel to Philadelphia, and it's a lot for them, even for professionals, blah blah blah. But I was actually looking into it, and they haven't. So they sort of set up a kind of a camp on the East Coast, where they've been there for a couple of weeks now, and they were there before the Detroit game, and they're going to stay there. They've stayed there. They haven't moved for this one. So I actually think that concept of a road game isn't as big in this case. So that was one of the things that played into my mind. I think a lot of people will move against them. Like I said, injuries. You mentioned injuries. I think people will overreact to that, and then it's not going. The second road game in the second game of the season is not actually going to have the big impact on them that it might later down the line. So they're my two main reasons for that one. And obviously they looked very impressive last week, so I'm happy to go with them.
Yeah, like there's obviously the concern there around the way they kind of threw away the lead in the second half. I think, I'm not too sure of the record, whether it was a record in the 49ers franchise or whether it was a record in kind of Kyle Shanahan's tenure as manager or as head coach. I'm not exactly too sure there, but the first half scoring points was a record. So over, I think, 29 points was the threshold, and they scored over that. It was something to that effect anyway. So to get off to such a good start, and then to just kind of capitulate against a team like the Lions, that is an obvious concern, and they won't want to do that. I think that the Eagles probably have a bit more on offense, so they won't want to do that against the Eagles. But again, I still think they should get through. I think the defense is strong. You've got Bosa, Ford, Street.
Do you think
just a mean defense, and I think against a rookie quarterback, they could have a bit of a day there. So I think they need to go in, the 49ers. They look quite explosive on offense, and I think Shanahan's going to have fun with the two QB situation, bringing in Trey Lance and mixing him and Garoppolo. So
do you think?
I think they're a solid team.
That Atlanta flattered Philadelphia a bit last week?
I think so, yeah. Atlanta are just a strange team. Sometimes you look at it and you go, it's like Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan, and then there's nobody in support. They just and they've been like that for the last couple of seasons, where they've just had these games where they don't show up as a whole team. So that's across offense, defense, and special teams. So, I do think that the Eagles were a little bit flattered. They're going to come up against a serious team in the 49ers this week. It's not going to be cold. There's a lot of things that normally a team from the West Coast going into Philadelphia, you're looking at in the middle of November or December, and it's freezing cold, and it's a big shock to the system. There's none of that about this game. I can't see anything but the 49ers. They'll win on the money line. I think they'll cover the spread quite easily.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think we're both agreed on it, and they served us well last week, so I think it's pretty safe to say that will go in as one of our 5, but we'll come back to that later. The next one up is that I have. I don't think you have them. It's the Cowboys plus 3.5. You didn't pick them, and again, from a few other competitions, it doesn't look like a hugely popular pick there. The caveat for this one, or the risk, is obviously it's a true second road game for them. They travel from Florida all the way over to Los Angeles, but they do have a lot of kind of rest time this week. So I thought Tampa Bay are a lot of people's favorites this season, or they're amongst the favorites for the Super Bowl. I think the Cowboys, put in a really good showing against them. You couldn't say they were unlucky to lose, but they lost very late and in a very, very close game. They're underdogs here against the Chargers. I think the Chargers were, it wasn't the best games against Washington last week, but we said it again. It was that Washington fumble late on, and then the turnover to LA, and then they took that and they scored a touchdown, and that touchdown won them the game. They were losing before that, and it kind of petered out after that. Their defense was quite strong on the following the following Washington possessions, but I just think that game had gone differently. That fumble, which is basically a 50-50, who's going to recover that. They were lucky, and then that got them the win. I don't know if they're necessarily better than the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys look very, very impressive. Okay, there's the home advantage, but they're both coming off a road trip, so it's not. I don't know if it's going to be that big a deal, and I just think that having come on the wrong side of a very close game last week, the Cowboys are going to have kind of a point to prove. We all now know that they can do it, and I think they'll have a very good chance to kind of put in a good showing here against the Chargers. You don't have that one, so I'm not sure if you've got any thoughts on that game.
I actually do. I actually have the Chargers there.
Oh, you do have them? I didn't even see that. All right.
So, like, I think this is one where you're saying, Joe, about the overreaction. I think the Cowboys is a massive overreaction. So they look decent on offense. Obviously, Dak Prescott looks back. But he's lost Michael Gallup. I think he's out for 6 weeks or whatever. I think they might get slightly complacent. And I don't think they can afford to be complacent against this Chargers team. If you look at the stats for last season for the Cowboys defense, I'm not sure whether they've solved the problems that they needed to solve last year. So if you look at them last year, they were rated like in points conceded, down near the bottom in the total NFL. I think they were something like 27th or 28 in points conceded per game. And they averaged, I think it was something around 29 to 29.9 or something like that. And then obviously, again, they're up against the GOAT, so you can't read too much into it. But last week they gave up 29 points to the Bucks. The concern element there is 391 yards through the air, and they're going to face a Cardinals team who were unbelievably good. A Chargers team who were are unbelievably good through the air. Herbert's a gunslinger. I think he will tear them apart, especially in the secondary. I think my bad, which I was going to say the upset, but obviously the spread is -3.5 for the Chargers. I'd be taking that. I don't think that the Cowboys will be able to do it, especially because they're not getting their running game going. What did Zeke Elliott have last week? I'd be surprised. I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I'd be surprised if he got more than 50 or 60 yards. Pollard was ineffective as well. They're just, if you can't establish the run, especially on the road, and you're going up against like Joey Bosa and co, and then you've got problems on defense, you're giving up 30 points a game against a team that are quite explosive. You've got Keenan Allen, you've got Mike Williams. I think the Chargers would be a bet. I can understand if you want to leave this game off both our picks because we're against each other, but I definitely wouldn't be willing to concede the Cowboys going in. I don't think.
No, I think we'll have to leave it because I take the Cowboys money line here as well. I think they'll beat them. I think the plus 3.5. Yeah, I think the plus 3.5 is great as well because a couple of the games we've talked about have been settled by quite close scores so far, and I just think that 3.5, it's outside the field goal. It's going to be, if it's a tight game, then the 3.5, the extra half there could be quite useful. But if you're very strong on the Chargers, we can leave that one off as well. The next one I'm going to go to is one of mine here, and I don't believe you have it. Is that I just think we talked about overreactions. I think the Panthers plus 3.5 at home to New Orleans. I don't think the Panthers had 45 minutes of doing nothing last week, and then they had one quarter where they looked, really, really impressive. First game of the season, some, new players in there. It took a bit of time to maybe, get things to click. I think they showed a lot of potential of what they could achieve this season in terms of when they get that offense right. I think the New Orleans Green Bay game, okay, right, we might come back to it at the end of the season, and New Orleans are, explosive the whole year round. But I just think that game is going to look like an anomaly. And I just think that it's been an overreaction, so I'm happy to take the 3.5 here. You haven't got the other side of this one, I don't believe. No, you don't. So no. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that game at all.
Yeah, like, I mean, I was big on the Panthers last week, and I was quite disappointed with them. So, I think that obviously they've got Chris McCaffrey, and if he would look back to his best last week, or probably not even his best, but he still put up big numbers last week. So if he performs, they can challenge any team in the NFL. But you can't deny how impressive the Saints were last week. I find it a really tough game to call. If you're really strong on the Panthers, I think I'd be willing to give it to you. But to me, I think it would be a game to avoid personally. But I can see where you're coming from. I can see the overreaction, and it's one of those games that it could turn into just a shootout. Again, the Panthers aren't mugs on offense. So yeah, if you want to put it in, I would have wanted 2 points more if it was 5.5. I definitely would have put it in, but 3.5 I think is a little bit slim.
Yeah, we can come back to it later on. We can see, but yeah, at least you don't have a strong opinion against, which is a good thing. There's one here on yours now. We're going to go to it, and it surprised me. I must say, you've got the Patriots to beat the spread of 5.5. What's your thinking there?
Well, just reading that they're playing against the Jets. And although the Jets cost me, the Jets cost me last week now, because they made a little bit of a comeback, and the Panthers didn't cover the spread. Then I think it ended up being a push. The spread was 5, so in my kind of personal bets, it ended up being a push. But kind of just after halftime, you were sitting there kind of pretty thinking, it was in. They scored kind of a lot of kind of dirt plays or dirt scores, and got back to a respectable amount. I think that last week and entering the season, I was pretty negative about the Patriots, and I thought they might struggle this season. And I kind of mentioned in my season preview that I wouldn't have been so that big on them. But I thought they were actually showed a bit last week, and I thought the Jets showed a bit of their old self in terms of, they had no running game. They made a few kind of stupid mistakes. They gave up a few scores easily. So again, it's not the strongest of my picks, but I can see that. I can see them covering the 5.5.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think I don't have a huge feeling on this game. I just think that there's a bit of what you said there. Basically, exactly the same logic, but I just on the other side of it, that people are just saying, the Jets aren't that good, and that's why that line is what it is. I don't think the Patriots were that. They didn't impress me much last weekend. It's a shame I didn't have time to line them up. I was going to play them on the stream, but you mentioned your lack of trust in Tua, and there was a few great clips I saw on Twitter of people just breaking down his play and comparing it to basically his time at Alabama. And as you mentioned it, we saw him live, and his first attempt or his second attempt, he's electric, right? And he has his stats for those two throws are really, really impressive. But when he goes to his third and fourth, or if he goes to fourth, or if he doesn't get his first or second choice, so obviously you can see him when he looks down the field and he's aiming for one guy. If he can't get him, when he goes to his second and or third choice, target, his metrics just go through the floor. And there were some really good clips of him, people splicing it, what he did with Alabama and what he was like last week against the Patriots. So I think that, Miami maybe the Patriots made them make mistakes. So I'm not, it's two sides of the same coin, but I just think Miami were a bit poor in certain ways, and they were still So I just think that I'm not really hot on the Patriots, to be honest. Is the short answer there?
Yeah, I just look at Miami are a very good defense. They were highly ranked last season in all of the major categories, so like turnovers, points conceded, yards conceded, etc. And the Patriots, now fair enough, they're at home, but they still nearly racked up 400 yards of total offense against them. There was 125 yards of that on the ground. If the Patriots put up 125 yards rushing against the Jets and Mac Jones can get any way going through the air, I think they win. Do they cover the spread? That's the kind of the $1 million question. Put them in the Circa Millions. But I think that, the Jets, like they gave up 381 yards against the Panthers last week. Are they going to be able to hold the Patriots to under that? I don't know. I don't think so. So
I could concede this one, to be honest. I did think, when I get the start of the week, I'd actually picked the Jets. That's why I was laughing when you picked the Patriots. I actually picked them. I thought the line looked a bit high. And then as the week went on, I took them out because I just thought, I think I might have put them into one of the smaller priced ones I'm entered in, but I don't think, like you said, there's too many question marks there. So I didn't stick with them myself. So I'm happy to concede this one. You may give a case for the Patriots there. Maybe they do just.
Well, I'd say leave it for now because we have two overlap. We have the 49ers to overlap, and then I suppose we better give the Cardinals a shout because we have them that overlap as well.
So the next one I was going to actually come to was, and my next two picks, I'm going to do two together. They kind of overlap. So it's the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Obviously, very early in the season, it's hard to tell who's good and who's bad and what's going on there. But I think that I think we both agree the Cardinals were very, very impressive last week. I think we both I certainly do. I quite rate Tennessee, and they just looked hopeless against Arizona. So I think Arizona were very impressive. I think this week, what are they giving up here? 3.5. I think it's going to be covered. I think it's going to be covered with ease. And by the looks of it, you seem to have the same opinion on that. My flip side of that is that I think because the Cardinals were so good, I don't think Tennessee were actually that bad. And I think they're going to the Seahawks. I think that spread would actually be, sorry, before I move on, what did you think about that? Would you agree with the Cardinals there before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, they were so impressive last week, both sides of the ball. As I said, Chandler Jones got 4 sacks 5 sacks in the game. I tipped Nick Bosa in my season preview to get most sacks in the season. I think that bet's already gone. Chandler Jones, he's probably got to win it after week 1 after getting those 5 sacks. So, the Cardinals were unbelievably impressive. They're going up against a banged up Vikings team. I can only see one winner there as well. So I think it's a certainty it has to win.
Yeah, I think if I was only picking one this week, I would take Arizona. If it was in the Survivor, for example, that would be the one I take. Even though I don't think I actually did it in my own last man standing. But the other side of it, I thought Tennessee were poor last week, and I think they're going to Seattle. And I think, what is the line on this one? 6. Let me get it back up.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
6. I think that it's probably, we've talked about the way the bookie set the line, and I think it's just gone below the 6. I think it's kind of hinting at the touchdown. I think that they'll be very, very strong. I was quite impressed with Seattle last week. Now, I know the Colts weren't really at the races, but I thought Seattle were very impressive. But you obviously haven't picked this game, so you don't see that line. But what are your thoughts on that match?
So, my thoughts were that they gave up over 100 yards on the ground to the Colts, and now they're going to face Derrick Henry. So that's why I didn't put it in, because I think if Henry didn't really get going last week. I think they were trying to get Julio Jones in the team. They targeted him a couple of times. He actually got called out by the coach for ill discipline that cost him. I think that they didn't play to their fundamental strengths last week, and they got a lot of heat for that. I can see a different Titans team coming out. Do I think the Seahawks could cover 6? The answer would be yes. But do I think there's better value about? My answer there would be yes as well. So I'm not strongly against it. As I said, I can see it happening, but that concern around, you're giving up over 100 yards to, a mediocre enough Russian unit, and then you've got Derek Henry landing the next week. That kind of concerns me.
This is anyone who's knows us personally will know that I'm more of a college football bettor than the NFL. I've not really been hugely involved in the NFL spreads until relatively recently, and we talked about this. You might not remember, we talked about this. I think it was 2 seasons ago, or maybe early last season. That when I looked at the numbers, when I was starting to get into it, to me, the Seahawks are one of the teams that were kind of most underrated in the spread markets. Maybe it's just a question of popularity. Maybe some of the other franchises, get more of the money, and that's where the lines get set the way they do. But I think it's not necessarily a case for them this week, but I do think that they tend to get kind of underestimated a bit in the market. So that was another thing that kind of played into my thinking here. But we can put a question mark beside that one and then come back to it at the end. What else? I'm just looking at now your 5. So I think we've gone through my 5. Oh yeah, we're missing just one for you. So Buffalo, you've taken them to cover here. What's your logic there?
My logic is they can't be as bad as they were last week, really. This is probably one that I'd be happy enough to leave off. I just think that, Joe, the Bills are a very good team, playoff team last year. They have the ability to cause the Dolphins problems. I said the Dolphins didn't really cover themselves in glory against the Patriots last week. If you believe the Patriots are good, then you can kind of give Miami an exemption from that. But if you think the Patriots are bad, then it was a fairly bad performance from the Dolphins.
It was my 7th pick, and it was actually the same as you here. I don't think the Patriots are good. I therefore also don't think that the Miami result was particularly great. And like you said, Buffalo can't really be that bad. So I would have been, I could have agreed with you on this one. I could agree with you on this one. I think that I don't like the 0.5 on this again. I'd be much happier if it was -3, or even inside 3. But I think that, I think that they have, quality will come to the fore there. I think the fact that it's a road game, there's probably, if it wasn't in Miami would they have that 3 points? I probably don't think so. If this was in Buffalo, I would probably be, maybe the other way, maybe Buffalo -2 or something like that, or 2 extra. So yeah, I could be convinced that you don't actually sound very hot on it. I was kind of glad when I saw it on your list, but then now that you don't sound hot on it.
I think they'll cover, but it's kind of a little bit going on. Like, it's not going on what I seen in week 1. It's kind of going on the Bills being like last season's performance and kind of holding them a little bit on a pedestal. So that's why, if you ask me to back it up strongly, I can't really do it. But can I see them going into Miami and winning by 4 points? Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think they will cover, and I think we'll look back on this and say we should have put them in if we don't put them in. But can I strongly justify it? Probably not.
Yeah, I know the way that goes. So let's move now to this. I'm going to try. This is a new scene that we're testing out here, so apologies if it doesn't work. But we have all the picks on the screen now. So we also got our own ones and then a few extra ones. So you've added a couple on there, Gary. You got the Texans at the Browns as the first one that we haven't covered here. What are your thoughts on that?
The Texans at the Browns. Well, I think there's 2 things in there. So the Texans looked better than I thought they were going to be. And I don't really think you can trust the Browns. Now, will the Browns win? Probably yes. Will they cover? Probably yes. I think it's one that you probably don't get involved in. There's 2 12.5s this week that I think are dodgy. Like, a lot of people go for the Bucks because the Bucks were savage last week. They obviously won the Super Bowl last year, and the Falcons were shocking last week and were pretty shocking last year. So 12.5 should be doable. But when you start going like above 2 scores, I think that it gets into very dodgy territory. So I kind of crossed the two of those off my list, the 12.5s, because I just don't think you can disrespect teams in the NFL that much unless you know that they're kind of bombing for draft picks late in the season. But this early in the season,
I'd agree with you.
I think it's a bit risky.
The 12.5s are ridiculous in both of those games. Tampa looked very good last week, sure, but they, it's some jump from a late field goal to win the game to, nearly a 2 touchdown win. The Falcons can't be as bad as their game week 1 score. I just think that even if a comfortable win, they could win it very, very comfortably, win by 10, and nobody bat an eyelid except for the mugs who've taken 12.5. I think there's a few players on that team. I think that they're not going to just put the foot down and just push and push and push. If they go up a bit earlier, I can't see them annihilating the Falcons here because they might not even have the appetite to do it. So I'd be perfectly happy to scratch that one. And then, like you said, the Browns, I
think the two on here that appeal to me that we haven't really mentioned, but I think that they probably should have been, and I'm surprised they're not in either of our top 5s, is the Rams -3.5 at the Colts, and the Broncos -6 at Jacksonville. I mean, Jacksonville looked fairly terrible last week, particularly on defense. Lawrence got a little bit going through the air, but they didn't look great shakes. The Broncos are a fairly decent outfit, and they have a decent defense. So you can see them picking off Lawrence a couple of times, forcing a couple of turnovers. Turnovers win games. Again, if that was down around the 3.5, 4, you'd definitely be taking it. The 6 is why I didn't put it in there, but I think it definitely deserves a mention. And as I said, the Rams, I tipped the Rams for the Super Bowl. If they're going to win the Super Bowl, they should be able to win and beat a Colts team that haven't really got going. There's question marks over Wentz's fitness, even though he played last week. He's still probably not back to full fitness. I think they were saying the tight end Doyle is going to be out this week. So there's a couple of injuries around for kind of players that are staples. So,
there are two interesting lines. The Rams, the reason I went off that one was just the 0.5. I just think that I don't know if they were as good as the scoreline looked against Chicago last week, and then the 0.5. I just thought they could go in there, they could win, like I said, with a field goal, and we'd be paying the price for that 0.5. If you went for that one, I probably wouldn't argue against it. I just kind of hesitated when I saw the extra 0.5. The other one that you mentioned, Jacksonville. The reason I actually went against this one, I actually think that this will be a 2-score game. I think that the Broncos are going to stuff them. But I am slightly biased against Trevor Lawrence. I think he's obviously supremely talented, but I think he's one of those guys who looks unbelievable in college and then will struggle in the pros. I think just there were certain things about him last week. I watched an awful lot of his games last season and the season before, and I think there were certain things he did. He does unbelievably well, and then there's other parts of his game where he's a bit questionable. And I always had the feeling that those kind of question marks would become problems in the NFL, and I saw it last week, and I think that this could be I actually would have. I mean, I would be backing this one, and I know some of the bookies do alternative spreads. I could be backing them here -8, -10. I think that it's a very good one. But my caveat was that I know I'm biased, so maybe my opinions were based on my own personal bias, so I left it out of my 5. I'm kind of glad to see you have the same thoughts on it there. I know we don't have 5 overlapping between our own picks this week, so it could easily be put in there. If you still like it, I'd swallow my bias.
We have the 49ers and the Cardinals, and they're definitely in. But the other picks that we have are kind of contentious. So, of mine, I think. So,
well, of mine,
go on.
The Cowboys would have been my next strongest, and you're adamant against that. So we can scratch that one. which would have been probably my number 2 pick, to be honest, after the Cardinals, but we'll take it out. So now the next one down I had was the Seahawks. But before we do them, what would your next strongest pick be after the 49ers and the Cardinals?
I think the Patriots.
Okay. Let me make a note. Yeah, so the Patriots. Yeah, I'm not hot on it, but I can't really give you a reason not to, if that makes sense. So I can't give a justification to leave it out, so I think it has to go in for that reason. For that reason alone. Let me just make a note. You were questionable on the Seahawks, so you were kind of against it, but you weren't firmly against it. Is that the right?
Yeah, I'm not firmly against the Seahawks. If you're strong on them, I could let you have it. But as I said, I just think if you come back next week and we're talking about this, it'll be that Derrick Henry has run all over the Seahawks defense. So, but yeah, if you want to have it, you can have it.
All right, and you're washing your hands of it entirely, though. At the same time, it doesn't fill me with confidence. The two you mentioned late, then the Rams and the Broncos. Which of those would you pick if you had to pick one?
I think the Rams.
You want the Rams, right? Yeah, I could be convinced, but let's leave it there with a question mark. There's a couple of other games that I'm surprised that we didn't look at. The Raiders, and what are they? 6 point underdogs. Am I right in reading that? It's a little bit hard to read at the minute.
Sorry, the Raiders. Yeah, it's 6 points. Yeah. Now, the only thing about the Raiders is Josh Jacobs has been declared out for this game, so they're a little bit banged up there as well. The Steelers didn't look great last week, but again, they've got a lot of weapons on offense. So I think the Raiders are a decent team, but I think this is 50-50 about a 6 point spread. So that's why I left it out personally. But
I was close to taking Pittsburgh on this one. I thought that I don't think they were as bad. I don't think they were that bad last week, and I just think that, like we said earlier, the two fumbles were huge in that Baltimore Vegas game, and Baltimore, the Raiders came out with both of them. There's two 50-50s that they got both of them. I think they, play that game again, they would get at least not one of them, and then I think that this could end up being a coming back down to earth moment for Las Vegas. So I was tempted by the Steelers, but yeah, -6 is a bit of an ask, so happy to skip over that one. And then the other side of it is Kansas at Baltimore. So you weren't tempted by either side of this one?
Like, again, if you ask me, I'd probably pick the Chiefs, but no, I'm not tempted to get involved. And I think they're two teams of kind of a similar quality on their day. Baltimore be looking for a bounce back at home. Like, Chiefs kind of struggled against the Browns, who again are a decent team, but I just think this could be a tight one down to the wire. High scoring game. I'd leave it off. I think there's better value around the league, to be honest. So I'd agree with you. There is better value. That's what. Let's nail it down. So we're going with. We've decided we're going with the 49ers and the Cardinals. You're keen on the Seahawks, so kind of have to give you that.
Yeah.
I'm keen on the Patriots, so you'll have to give me that. And then we've got to decide whether we want to stick with our picks here. So pick either the Panthers or the Bills, or do we want to go rogue and start looking at the likes of the Rams, the Broncos, or the Steelers? So I'll let you pick. I'll pick those teams.
Of all the ones we went with there, I would probably go with the Broncos, but we went rogue last week and paid the price for it. I would say for that reason we leave that out. We go against it and we stick with one of the 5 that we picked. You probably made a better case for the Bills than I had for for the Panthers, so I'm happy to take the Bills there. I'm not massively against them. I just didn't like the 0.5.
All right, just put all the pressure on me, Sam.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think I said it was one of my longer list picks. I just we put it down. We put GN in brackets behind it just so there's no confusion. And,
yeah.
We'll go with that.
All right, so that's the fiver pick.
The Patriots, the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Cardinals, and the Bills.
Okay, I think that's fairly solid. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, we'll put that in, and we'll obviously update you next week how it goes. I won't jump the gun this week and announce our total score until all our teams have played. I got so excited about the Rams game that I don't know why I thought it was the last of our picks, but anyway. Okay, well, look, that's going to wrap up the show.
I woke up on Monday morning. I was just like, what is the story here? It's good.
Oh, God. And then inevitably it was going to lose because that happens when you call something early. But,
yeah.
Right, well, look, that wraps up our Circa segment, and hopefully you followed a couple of the tips that we called out, or a couple of the bets that we called out on air. A couple of great winners tonight. So we had at least 3 bets from the All Action ACCA that we share on SportsRunDown.com, and then an 18-1 and a 40-1 in-play bets that got up as well. So by all means, let us know what you think. Share the page. We'd really appreciate that. And hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you at the same time next week.
Yep, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Good night.